Welcome back to WRPL, the podcast where we talk about all the things we're watching, reading, playing, and listening to. My name's Ben.
And I'm Steve.
How you doing, Steve?
I'm doing well, Ben.
Good. Glad to hear it. This week we're talking about Creed 3 and Champions. So, gotta say, probably our weakest episode of things I want to talk about.
Don't undersell it. We got The Last of Us at the end.
No, we don't.
I don't know. We're gonna watch Last of Us
And then we're gonna re-record. We're gonna record more and then
yeah,
put it in.
that's what I figured. Yeah.
I figured we were just gonna save it for next week. We're recording a little bit early, and normally we have had already seen Last of Us. But I guess I'll be cutting this out, and I'll plop in the recording somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, it could just be like at the end, or if you want to move. I don't want to like make your editing harder. I just figured like we're here, we might as well do it.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I'm totally fine with that.
I mean, unless this episode's like 2 hours long, and it's like,
yeah,
fuck.
I can't. I mean, last two episodes.
I mean, if it's an hour and a half, fine. But if it's 2 hours, I ain't doing it.
All right. So if you hear us talk about Last of Us, we were able to squeeze it in. If not, you'll have to wait till next week, and we'll do the last two episodes and season wrap up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You want to start with the game?
Yeah. Let's start with some games. What'd you play, Steve?
I played the PlayStation Plus free game of the month, OllieOllieWorld. And when I say I played it, I gave it a good hour. It's a very cute game. I enjoy its art style. Mm-hmm. Very reminiscent of Adventure Time.
Sure.
I think there's some good humor in it. Mm-hmm. Good like location design of the tracks. I like that they're trying to get to Nirvana and
GNAR.
GNAR. And what was the other thing that was there was like that and another thing that was like a play on words that was really clever.
Oh yeah.
Shit. Doesn't matter. Anyway. And I also like that there's a character named Dad, and you're just like, yeah, I inherited that name from my father. I was like, that's pretty funny. Yeah. So there's some good stuff to this game, but you and I, we like some gameplay too. Along with, this isn't a very story-heavy oriented game, which I wouldn't expect it to be.
No, I mean it has more story than I expected it to.
Correct. That being said, I needed some like real fun skateboarding elements to it, and I just couldn't really get into it. It's very linear. You're just going down a path, and I mean, you can do some interesting like moves, I guess.
You got like 4 tricks and then 4 grinds.
But I mean, you can like combo things and get a big score. And the tracks are interestingly designed and they're fun. But like after playing an hour, I still had like 4 or 5 more tracks of like the tutorial to do. And I was like, this tutorial is way too long. I'm already bored of this game. It needed to be like one track where you do one move, and once you landed that, go on to the next thing. It's like, okay, I can learn all my moves in like a track or two, and then I'm done. But it was just like, nope, here's how you jump. Just do jump for this track. And then here's how you grind. Do grind just for this track.
This is how you push off your board.
Yeah. So I had no interest in like continuing because I was like, oh, this is taking so long just to get through the tutorial. I don't care about whatever the next 50 tracks are going to be. So pass for me.
Yeah, it felt like a waste of time to finish a track, talk to your friends, have them explain the next one, have it load, go into that, like just one track after the next. Just to teach me all the things in one go. So I'm with you. I can't. And I also didn't love the controls all that much. It's different, but I was wiping out a lot more because as like a classic video game thing, you push X and that makes you jump. Well, no, X was the go, and you had your directional were getting the trick ready and then releasing it. And if you're not prepared for what's coming up next, you don't get to get as much distance off that ramp. It seemed, I don't want to say overly simple, but just I can't see the variety making it so interesting that I want to keep going. Yeah.
I also remember the other play on words. It was Radlandia.
Oh yeah,
Radlandia. I liked. So, I mean, better than I expected, but not as fun as I wanted it to be.
Yeah.
So it's going to be do not play for for me. That's a new rating system: is play it or don't.
Yeah.
So don't play it.
Yeah, I agree. But we kind of jumped in a bit quick. We didn't roll.
Oh yeah, you're right.
Let's do
Well,
it.
that's going to be a minus to the roll probably. Roll at disadvantage. Here we go. Oh shit, that's a 3.
Oh, that's your worst so far.
That's bad. 17. That's your best so far,
I
maybe.
believe so. All right.
Put those together. That's a 20,
Just
baby.
A 20, but of the potential 40 that we can get. So once again, just an average episode.
Yep. Alrighty.
Okay, well, I didn't watch a whole bunch, but I'll do a real quick one. Mandalorian came back.
Oh, I also did watch Mandalorian.
Yeah, so season 3, episode 1. It sure was an episode of Mandalorian.
Yep.
It didn't blow me away.
Nope.
But I think by this time it has enough goodwill that I don't need to be sucked back in. Like, you already got me. I'm here. But the few things I didn't like was, once again, another giant animal fight. Mandalorian loves their big monsters. And it was one of the most uninspired monsters. Like,
it's a crocodile with a shell.
With a shell. Wow. Whoop-de-doo.
I was surprised at how long that fight sequence went on.
Yeah, it kept going.
Yeah.
And the stuff with IG-88. Do you really need to bring this droid back? Well, he's so special. You can't get other droids. It has to be this one. And knowing that he's going to have to go on this quest to find a guy, to get a part, to remake it. It's this side quest of this season that we don't need. Just have him get some other bounty hunter. IG-88 wasn't that great that he had to come back.
Star Wars loves their funny droids.
Yeah, and you know that's I like their funny droids. You know,
sure,
I'm all about it.
There's a reason they work.
But to deconstruct the statue of a fallen hero that helped bring prosperity to this land, just to make him his sidekick again because he's so good. He's not the only IG droid. He's not the only IG droid out there. But yeah, this episode it made me a little frustrated just because I don't know enough about Mandalore and the Mandalorian culture for me to give a shit about him being so dead set about being
bathing
blessed and getting forgiveness, because I'm with Bo-Katan on this. It's a crazy weird cult. Why can't you show your face? You know, they haven't shown me any reason besides just like, they're really cool looking when you leave it on. And then I need more than that. So hopefully we get more into their world, because I don't really care about this mission.
Yeah, I mean, I know you have Baby Yoda, and it's like, where does Baby Yoda lie, or Grogu, I'm sorry, lie in the Star Wars canon universe? What is its destiny?
Yeah.
But the show is called The Mandalorian, and it's like you could have a very interesting show about the Mandalorian now, like dealing with his religion and his beliefs, and like the battle between like this other group of people who like also are Mandalorian, but like they're like, dude, your stuff's crazy. Yeah. Like, don't do that. It's a waste of your time. While also dealing with the concept of, oh, here's this other religion of Jedi magic that's seemingly works. And there's also the idea of just like, oh, I've lost my culture. There's only a few Mandalorians left. Like, can I rebuild my society? Like, it doesn't have to be some sweeping space adventure that involved Jedi. Like, have the Mandalorian hang out with other Mandalorians. Let them go on Mandalorian missions together.
Yeah. Have a Mandalorian picnic, you know?
Yeah. But I've said it on here before. Star Wars is like the only thing I'm watching Star Wars wise is the show. So this episode did nothing for me, and I had to, because I didn't watch Book of Boba Fett, because I didn't care. Even though you said, Steve, watch like the 2 episodes with the Mandalorian in it.
Really, you only need the
one, whatever. Yeah. Because like the episode starts and it's just like, I hope you watch Book of Boba Fett because Grogu's back and it doesn't explain why. And I was like, so I had to like, I Wikipedia'd what happened so I could go like, okay, because unless I missed it, there wasn't like a previously on The Mandalorian.
Oh, there was. But it showed more of like IG-88. Actually, his name is not IG-88. That was one of them that went after Han Solo in Empire. I think he's IG-11. So
Got
I
it.
apologize, Star Wars nerds. I misspoke.
Well, I didn't know the difference either way. So yeah, I liked when he got to see Carl Weathers,
Hmm.
and he was just like, "I need a new marshal." I was like, "Yeah, have the Mandalorian be like the sheriff of town."
Yeah,
Cool. I'll watch that.
that really should have been the Book of Boba Fett season. Instead of Boba Fett becoming this like crime lord, it should have maybe been him becoming the sheriff of the town to clean up the crime or to get rid of the criminals that are not as honorable as him or whatever.
Mhm.
But I love this part because they're like, oh, what about what's her name? Clara Dune? And like, oh, she had to go back to her home planet.
She got recruited
She got
by
recruited,
some
yeah.
other.
But it was just like, sweep it away. Nope, she does not exist, and you will never ever see her again.
Never talk about it again. Yeah.
And what a fool for giving up that Star Wars money.
Oof.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your principles and everything, but you threw away Star Wars money.
Star Wars money.
Moron.
Toys are getting made of you.
Yeah.
Or they were.
Yeah. And now you work with Ben Shapiro. Not a step up.
So yeah, I liked that, and then that doesn't seem like it's going to be explored. Or maybe it is. Maybe that's just like the drop, and it's like, here's the idea, and then at the end of the season, he'll come back and will be the marshal of this town.
Maybe.
I don't know how long you could like keep that going, but that's something I would have liked to have seen for at least a couple episodes.
See Grogu in his little cowboy hat and in chaps, just going down the street, little sheriff.
Yep, I like it, and I liked the design of like the pirate captain with his like seaweed looking beard.
It was like Pizza the Hut from Spaceballs that got dumped into the ocean.
Yeah.
It was pretty gross, but interesting.
Yeah. I mean, by no means is that like a saving grace of the show. From a character design standpoint, I like the look of it. And then the only other I like the idea that Mandalorians have castles. Yeah. For some reason. Just a big castle fan. But all these like things, all these shows and movies do this where they're like someone walks into like this grand hall and then like the king or whoever is sitting on the throne is just sitting in this giant empty room and like did they know you arrived? Were they waiting for you? Have they just been sitting here for like 6 hours? Because it's not like there's TVs. They're not reading a book. They're just sitting like menacingly. It's like
cool.
You'd be bored. Like what?
Yeah.
If she's not like a queen. She's not ruling over anybody. She's the leader of like this group of random Mandalorians. But yeah, what? Like,
I'm
is she the only one who's living there right now?
Yeah, I'm assuming she's all by herself, and she was like in her underwear, eating beans out of a can, and then some sensor went off, and went, shit. Yeah. Then sprawl out. Oh, this okay. Put one leg up. Is that too cool? No. Okay, hold on. Cross my arms. No. Okay. I thought when they fought the big alligator thing, I thought that was going to be a flashback. Okay.
I'm glad you brought it up because I thought that was very on purpose. I was like, oh, it's a little kid getting the helmet. I was like, that's got to be Mando.
It is.
And then once he showed up, I was like, that's a clever.
It was like a misdirect, but I thought because this kid's going through his ceremony, but they don't finish the words before they get interrupted. And I thought that was going to be Mando saying, well, actually, technically, I haven't been a Mandalorian this whole time because you never finished my confirmation. So I'm okay to take my helmet off. Now finish the thing and I'm good. But no, that wasn't it at all.
Nope. Now he's just got to go to Mandalore and take a swim.
Yeah. I liked Grogu hugging the little Babu Frick character. He's already so small and adorable, and seeing him pick up another small adorable character to hug him, adorable. Him spinning around in his chair using the Force to spin him. It's just like he's just so damn cute. Let's see, anything else in Mandalorian?
Yeah, I mean, I imagine the show will lead to a point where he becomes the leader of the Mandalorians because he has the Darksaber and there's a big Mandalorian battle that will be amazing. But just for me, fast forward to that shit. Like, get to the end of the season, have the big battle, and then you're done with the Mandalorian. I know you're not gonna because Pedro Pascal is internet's daddy and he's at the peak right now and everyone loves this show.
Two of the biggest shows, both with Pedro Pascal. Being a gruff man, taking care of a small, helpless child. I don't know if that's just going to be his brand now, but he has the exact same thing on TV right now, and they're the biggest things. Very big years for dads, with Kratos and a lot of dad-like movies like Top Gun Maverick. It's really dad
And I'm going to be a
heavy.
dad.
Yeah, and you're going to be a dad, so
yeah, I mean, Mandalorian. Watch if you got the time. That's my review.
What else you
got? Attack on Titan season 4 part 3 came back.
Is it part 3/A? Because this
/A, yeah.
Oh my God.
I mean, for someone who got into this show in 2013 when it premiered, not me, this must have been a nightmare to get to this point, because the second season of the show didn't premiere until 4 years after the first season. And the first season is great. And then it was just like, I don't know why it's taken the show so long. I don't know all the backstory, but I was fortunate enough to get into the show like right before season 4 part 2 premiered. So I was like able to binge seasons 1, 2, 3 and the first part of 4. And then I watched like almost immediately after that part 2 came out, watched all that. I was like, man, I can't wait. Now it's been a year later. We get a 1-hour movie. And then at some point this year, they haven't announced when, we're getting the other part of that, I assume, an hour-long movie.
And then that would be the end.
And then that would be the end. But from 2013 to 2023, only 4 seasons.
That's crazy.
So if you started from the beginning, I commend you for waiting it out this long, because that must have sucked. But for new fans like me, it hasn't been too bad. And the show's great. This 1 hour special, another great entry into the series. You get to see the rumbling where, thousands of Godzilla-sized things are just like trampling across the continent. Like,
is this a new thing, or is this something that happened in the past? The rumbling.
I guess it's a new thing.
Okay.
I don't think it's happened before, but there's like legends of the rumbling or whatever. So maybe it did. I can't remember. But because
I watched season 1.
And you're not.
I mean, maybe I'll
okay, well then I won't necessarily say major spoilers, but
I really don't care, dude. Just
okay, nuts. So spoilers if you haven't watched, if you're not caught up. But at the end of the season 4 part 2, your main hero, essentially becomes a supervillain where he unleashes all these giant titans that were like hidden inside the walls, and his plan is to just wipe out humanity. And the only people that would be alive are his people.
This is the main dude?
Yeah. And there's a whole not convoluted, but there's a whole big plot twist as to like how this comes to be and why things are. And it's really impressive. But just imagine like thousands of Godzilla-sized
so these are like mega titans, like the biggest of the big, or regular, just thousands of regular titans?
No, they're like the biggest of the big.
Damn.
And your main character is even like 10 times bigger than that, like crazy anime thing where he's like the size of a city by himself. Anyway, he looks absurd too. It's just a giant walking like skeleton thing. But it's horrifying the first like 15 minutes of this, because you just see these like hundreds, if not thousands, of these dudes just like trampling cities, and like just their footsteps are like kicking boulders into people, and they're just exploding and blood is going everywhere. You see a kid get squished, and you see like his teeth like break as the foot's coming down. You see a guy shoot himself in the head because he's just like it's hopelessness, because they're just like, you can't stop it. And like anyone who would even survive them walking past, they emit so much heat that all the buildings and stuff are just like catching flames. So like there's no way to escape this thing.
These poor people who have like survived so many attacks and have gotten to this point, and it's like, what's it all for?
None of these people have.
These people have never experienced the Titans?
Yeah, I mean, I think they might know of their existence. And that's why there's like racism towards the main characters' people. But all those people who like hold the Titan gene, I guess, live on this island, except for like the ones that they use for like war. But anyway, I won't get into it. But the point is, it was a horror show, but there's some incredible action. It's beautifully animated, and I can't wait for the end, mainly just for it to be over, because it's ridiculous that it's taken this long, and I haven't even been waiting that long. But it's for someone who talks shit on anime constantly, Attack on Titan is phenomenally good. It's great. Looks great. Super cool. Great idea. excellently well. Jesus, that was a sentence. A
executed,
well executed story that pays off things in the past, and like it all just works seamlessly. It's great.
Cool. I'll once again continue to wait until it's completely done, see what the final verdict is, and see if I'll get back into it. I don't know. We'll see. So I've had like trouble getting on to any sort of my streaming services. The PlayStation Network at my place has been spotty. It won't sign on, so it wouldn't let me use anything. So there have been at least 2 nights where I haven't been able to watch anything, and I would have to like dick around on my phone. It's been really annoying. It's working now, but I didn't get a chance to watch a whole lot. So one thing I did watch was a movie called Don't Blink. It has Brian Austin Green and Mina Suvari.
Oh, I didn't know she was still active.
Yeah, and it's not
good for her.
It's not that old of a movie. So it's 10 friends going up to this cabin to reconnect, and they get there, and there's no staff. Anybody staying at this hotel is gone. Like, it looks like people are staying in the rooms, but they're not there. There are tables with meals prepared, and it's like people just got up and left in the middle. And they're noticing it's really quiet. We don't even hear any animals or birds or even insects, and they're even digging in the ground to try to find worms or something. But there's like no living things around. It's just barren. Well, it seems that once you are out of eye shot, is that a word? I know earshot's a word, but
out of view.
View's the word. Once you're out of view of someone, if no one's looking at you, you just disappear. So everyone is trying to pay attention. Like, they all are talking about what the hell is going on, and Mina Suvari just happens to be in the back of the group, and no one's looking at her, and they turn around, and she's just gone. And people start disappearing. There's a couple playing strip poker, and one guy's like being coy and sexy, and he dips down behind the bar, and then she looks over, and he's just gone. So everybody's disappearing one after another, and they're going nuts, and they don't know what to do. And since they're on a mountain, and the gas pump is locked, they can't gas up their cars to get out of here, and don't know what's going on. And it's pretty interesting that like some of the characters that you would identify as, oh, that's one of the first people that would die in a horror movie, actually is the lone survivor, and some of the main people go away. It's never explained what happened. It's just there's one left, and a bunch of cops show up, and she thinks she's all safe, and she kind of closes her eyes in the backseat of the car, and everybody's gone. And it's just like left up to be this mystery of, yeah, just don't blink, don't lose sight of anybody, because they'll just disappear. I don't know if there's a bigger message, but you could definitely tell it was made relatively cheap. But for something that I just threw on expecting extreme hot garbage, it wasn't too bad. It was pretty fun.
I like the concept. I don't know if I would necessarily like the movie.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's a good way of doing like horror. Like, oh, it would be scary if people just suddenly disappear and you don't know why. And it's like, it doesn't cost any money. Like, no one's getting murdered. But it's like, oh, it's scary. Like, if I'm not looking at you or you're not looking at me, we just don't exist.
Yeah.
Or like, if she disappeared at the end, then it's like a leftover situation where like she jumps to the universe where like everybody is.
That's what I expected, but you don't see that.
But then I guess like, if that world is a parallel of ours, then they're just going to their own world. So like you wouldn't really lose anything.
But is it just around this cabin area? Is it something that's spreading across the country? Because they even say, well, we have a little bit of gas. We could all pile into one and get as far as we can. Like, yeah, it'll get us into the middle of nowhere at night. And this thing, whatever is causing this, may be chasing us, and it may be out there. But at least we're here with there's food, there's water, and shelter. So it's a fun concept. But you don't get.
You just don't get anything out.
You just don't get anything like you expect there to be a curse, a legend, some ancient book for them to get any sort of information. And
they find the one person who, like, I haven't been seen by anyone in weeks, but I somehow am here. And they're like, well, why is this happening?
And they don't follow their rules all that well. There's a point where 2 people are talking outside, and one guy goes back in, and Brian Austin Green kind of stays behind. And I know no one's looking at him, so he should have disappeared, but he doesn't. And then one character that they thought disappeared like that comes walking up like, oh, I fell in a ditch. I'm like, wait, how did you fall in the ditch? Last anybody saw you, you were in the house. And like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then he eventually disappears again, and they don't explain any of that. So it feels it's missing a little something. Maybe they couldn't film everything. Maybe it got fucked up in editing. But it was a fine enough concept to waste, 85 minutes on.
Right. I wonder if you could like set up a mirror like in front of your face, and as long as you're looking at yourself, if you would disappear.
Maybe I don't know.
And that's how you survive. You just have this dumb. You just have to look at yourself for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life. Yeah.
Yeah. Sounds like a pass for me.
Yeah. This is not a Steve movie.
All right. What else you got?
That's all I got.
Oh, cool. Well, I have a graphic novel I can talk about. So I had heard about this graphic novel for some time in my research of like things worth reading. And then I was at a thrift store or like an antique shop. And so I saw it, and it was only like $3 for each book. I was like, oh, good deal. And of course, I'm talking about the award-winning graphic novel Maus, Maus. And for those who don't know, it is a true story about a comic book artist and his father, who was a survivor of Auschwitz. Comically named in the book as Mauschwitz. Well, that's the name of the chapter. Like everything in the story is written as it's supposed to. But so book one is just his father retelling the story about his life from like essentially when the war started to him going to the camp. And then book two is him in the camp and everything that happens afterwards. And it is a horror show. I see why this is so beloved. If I didn't say, the Jewish people are mice and the Nazis are cats. And Polish people who aren't Jewish, they're pigs, which I was like, oh, that seems like kind of offensive. Like, why would you make someone a pig? And then I was like, oh, they're not kosher. And I was like, that was my logic. He never specifically says
Polish sausage, So
I was just like, oh, that's kind of funny. If that was the reasoning, I don't know if that's.
This is an Alan Moore story, right?
It's no.
Alan Moore didn't do this.
Alan Moore did not do this.
What?
Yeah, his name is Art Spiegelman, which I thought that's funny that a guy named Art got into the arts.
Well, there has been a study showing where, if your last name was Blood, you become like a doctor or a phlebotomist or something like that. Your obviously last name Shoemaker. Your ancestors were probably shoemakers,
right.
But there's a greater chance of you going into a field where that you have that name. And there's a lot of, chiropractors and like Dr. Snap and Dr. Crackle and Dr. Pop. So it doesn't surprise me too much to, your name's Art, you get into art. If you were Johnny Football, you probably are going to start playing football.
Yeah. I mean, it's good marketing. Like a business card would be great. But that's like the really cool thing about this comic book. Like he wanted to make a story about his father's experiences and do it as a comic book. But he's also drawing himself and his father's like conversations in the comic book and even like making references to it. So I guess after the first book came out, it was really successful. And they were like, he's drawing panels of himself, like talking to business people who are like, hey, we want to option this story into a movie. Interviews where they're just like, why'd you make them mice? Or is that don't you find that offensive too? Like, are you dehumanizing the experience of people by drawing them as like animal creatures and all this stuff? He's like, and he just never wanted to like make it into a movie. So it's really cool, like seeing him have the conversation with his father and then in the comic go like, I need to write this conversation down for the comic. And then it becomes part of the comic. So it's very sort of like meta while also just illustrating, like it tells a full story of like this man's journey and like you get the whole like how everything like came to be and just the taking of, all right, we're taking this away from you today. And it's like, okay, this isn't so bad. Oh, we're taking this away from you. And just like things just get progressively worse. And they're just like, oh, well, we can't trust the Germans. But sometimes they do give us a little bit of hope. It's like, oh, well, if you do this assignment, you get a warm bed and regular meals. It's like, okay, well, we'll do that. But then once they're done with you, then they take all that stuff away. And you see why people would like become traders. And it's like, your own Jewish people are going out like, oh, you guys are hiding out there? Okay, I'll come hide out with you later. But really, they just go get the Germans.
Yeah.
And it's just all the awful things human beings could do to people. It's astounding.
Especially when it's just like hunger. Like, my family's hungry, and to get a few meals, I will let another family die.
Yeah. And like I've given you and our mutual friend Nick, who's been on the show, crap because you guys enjoy watching like Terrifier stuff, where it's just like really awful thing that an imaginary person who may have magical abilities or whatever, like a demon. I don't really know the story, but I know it's kind of weird. But will just like mangle a human in a way that's just like horrifying. But then you read this, it's like, oh, well, this really did happen to a bunch of people. And it's crazy that humans have the will to endure this kind of stuff. It's really a testament to the human spirit, even though it's not really like what the book is about. And then once they get to Auschwitz, the stuff there is even more horrendous than all the stuff that comes before. And just like, being stuffed into a train shoulder to shoulder, and then it's like you can't even like fall down or sit down because there's no room, and there's no bathroom, so everyone's just like pissing and shitting on each other because there's nothing else to do, and then people are dying, so they're just like like at least once they die you can sit down because everyone's have enough room, and you just pile them by the door. So I don't know, it's just awful. And just the fact that this man survived solely by like knowing a certain skill that bought him a little bit more time, or just being lucky, or having enough friends to go like, oh well, luckily I had this friend who helped me out of this jam, but I couldn't help them out of that jam. And so those people get taken away and die. Or the only thing that basically kept this man alive is that his wife was in the women's camp of Auschwitz, and he's like, if she's alive, I need to stay alive so we can be together, because their son died during.
Damn.
Yeah. So they had two sons. The one that died during the like whole experience, and then the one that they had after the war. Because their son, they like left to another woman to take care of while they like I guess went on the run. But then the Germans were like coming for the kids and that woman. So the woman just like poisoned the children so they wouldn't get taken by the Germans.
Oh.
Yeah. So they found out like way later that their son was poisoned to death, which honestly was probably a better choice than giving to the Germans. And just it's an awful read, but it's phenomenal. Like, it's really great. And like at the beginning, you really kind of dislike the writer's dad because he's just so like uptight, and he's like everything his son does is like not quite right, and he's like picking up trash on the road. It's like, oh, this is a good wire, we can use this wire. And it's like he doesn't get rid of anything, he doesn't spend any money ever, because I guess like in his mind it's like, I'll have these things in case it happens again. So this will, because like they were like a moderately wealthy family, and that's what kept them alive for a while. And now like German, because they were just bribing people or whatever. So he's just kind of like become a hoarder of things, and like has lots of money but doesn't spend it. And he's like, even to like, if his girlfriend was just like, hey, we need groceries, like, well, you get the wrong groceries, or you buy the expensive stuff, like it's so like for being raised by that man must have been a nightmare. And the guy's just like, my dad is like ridiculous, this is unacceptable. But you, by the end of it, you're just like, you know what, like, be nice to your dad.
Like, I get it.
And and I know that's, you're raised by a guy, and it's like, look, I wasn't part of that. I can't imagine what it was like to be part of that. I understand where you're coming from, but it's still like, it's not a fun way to grow up. So like he doesn't pull any punches on his dad. Like, he writes his dad like kind of a dick. But at the same time, just a human person could survive all this and still like function and raise a family, and
let alone a mouse person.
Let alone a mouse person. And it's like, clear he loves his dad, but at the same time, like he's like, my dad is a nutcase. But you might be too if you spent years in European occupation of Germany. It was crazy. I highly recommend. It's fantastic. It's a easy read, but a tough one.
And I've heard that a lot about when Jewish people who were taken from the camps and they were brought to America, a lot of them didn't like being on the West Coast because there are no basements in houses on the West Coast. And they're like, well, I'm not going to buy a house unless I have a place that I can like run to.
Right.
That's what a horrible thing of like, well, just in case we have another genocide.
That's the other interesting thing about the book. Like, it'll show you how they sort of built secret rooms or like false panels to hide behind. And, you know, I think it's a thing where, like, let's say America was invaded and it becomes a similar situation where, like, everyone kind of has to hide. There's so many people who aren't really handy anymore. Where I feel like back then, like, most people knew how to, like, really...
Yeah, you fixed your own things.
You fixed your own things, yeah. Like, or, like, you knew... There's plenty of people who knew how to, like, build homes and stuff. Like, you could figure it out.
This is common knowledge stuff.
Yeah, yeah.
Specialty skills.
Yeah, home repair wasn't uncommon for anyone to know. Where, like, nowadays, like, if you ask me, like, oh, hey, Steve, the Germans are coming. Can you build a fake attic in your house? What? No, I guess
can put up a sheet. You know, can we hide behind a sheet? Is that good enough?
I'll slice open some pillows and we can maybe get stuff in a beanbag. I don't know. So it's pretty impressive the things that they were able to do to be able to hide. And yeah, and another interesting thing was the father and son were like driving and going to like the grocery store or something, and the artist's wife was driving, and there was a hitchhiker, and it was a black dog, and the father was like, don't pick up that person. And he used a word I've never seen before, but I'm gonna say it wasn't an appropriate word to call a black person. And the wife was just like, I don't understand you. Like, why would you? And they end up picking him up, and he was like a totally nice guy, and they let him out, and he like went on his way. But it's like, how can you, of all people, someone who survived the persecution, it's like you were in camps because of your religion, and you're like, don't trust that guy by the color of his skin. And it's just like, it's just a very interesting take on like, even people who go through this horrible thing can still like have these thoughts.
Yeah.
Because this conversation, I think, took place in the 80s or something. Yeah. And the comic book came out in like 1990, I believe. So, but yeah, it was pretty interesting that, you know, you could still, as someone who survives that kind of thing, you'd be like, I'm going to treat everyone with the highest regard because I was not treated that way. But it's like, nope, like people can still have that. And in their brain, despite all that,
your neighbors who you thought cared for you were willing to sell you out. You can't trust anybody.
Exactly, and that was kind of the idea. It was just like, I can only trust my own people because my own people were the only ones who got me out, and even they still sold me out. So why would I trust anybody else? So like, I get it, but it's still so interesting. It's like from an outsider's perspective, well, it's like, well, fuck that guy. He's an asshole. It's like, kind of has his reasons, though. I see his point. He's wrong, but he's got a point.
Are there a lot of different animals in it?
No. So for pretty much all of it, it's just the mice, cats, and the pigs, and then the only other animal was the dog. Okay. But there is a panel where the artist is trying to like, when he's like writing the book, he's like, I'm trying to figure out like what to draw other characters. It's like he almost drew his wife as a bunny, but it's like, well, that wouldn't make much sense if you're a mouse and I'm a bunny. Like, let's just both be mice, kind of thing. So it shows him like working on it. And he's like, he pitched other animals, but I think the only other ones you really see are cats, pigs, and mice, really. Okay. So
I was wondering that, like, would they show like a mouse and a cat who were married? You know, one was Jewish, one was not, and like that's kind of a weird thing for.
Yeah, I think that was one of the things like why he almost made her a bunny, because she wasn't Jewish. She converted to make her his dad happy. But it was just like, it's just easier, I guess, to draw mice. One thing that they did do whenever he was pretending not to be Jewish, it was him with a pig mask on, and you could like see the string. So that was kind of interesting, because obviously like your face wouldn't change in the real world, but it's like that's how they kind of like wrote it off. It's like, oh, if you're going out and pretending not to be Jewish, you got a pig face. Yeah. So I was like, oh, okay, that's kind of clever. But anyway, yeah, it's great. I highly recommend it. You can borrow it if you want.
Let me get through one not graphic novel before I jump to the next.
But it'll probably make you real sad and angry that this kind of shit went down. I see why they made so many movies about it.
And it not all that long ago either. I saw a thing that
less than 100 years.
Anne Frank Martin Luther King Jr. and Barbara Walters were all born the same year. Don't they seem like it's like decades apart? Like, oh yeah, between Anne Frank and Martin Luther King, that was at least 40 years. Yeah.
And then Martin Luther King and Barbara Walters, that's probably another
10,
30.
15, whatever.
Sure.
And it's like, no, they were all the same age. Like Anne Frank would have been like, 100 years old or something by now.
Yeah, Anne Frank and MLK could all still be alive.
Yep. Crazy.
Yep.
Well, I guess that's it, right? Until our main topic and Last of Us. So,
well, we have that other movie we watched.
But yeah, the two main topics.
Oh, the two main topics. Yeah. Okay, yes.
So if we record for Last of Us, Ben, insert it here. I just don't want to forget it, so I'm gonna bring up some Last of Us stuff, and I'll leave this in whether we add the episode stuff in or not. So some Last of Us talk. I don't think I mentioned it last week, but I think I have a more interesting and tragic way to do that last episode with Ellie and Riley.
Okay.
So I've been seeing a lot of people saying this is like their least favorite.
I've seen that as well.
And I want to chalk it up to, well, every other episode is a horrible thing that happens to someone and it, breaks people down, that maybe they're expecting something horrible to happen. And it is a little more kind of telegraphed throughout the season that something bad did happen in Ellie's past, so it's not as surprising. But I think my issue, besides, we talked about like not using a Molotov and things like that, I thought of a way that we can just tweak it so it would feel more tragic. So have more infected, they lock themselves into a store, and they think they're safe, but Ellie does get bit. And Riley is just so upset. I brought her here. I put her in this situation. Now, the person I love the most is going to die, and that's not fair. So she decides, I want to go too. Let's just do this. What's the line she says? Like, let's go mad together.
Let's lose our minds together.
Let's lose our mind together. And Ellie would tell her, no, save yourself. Let me just fucking die. He's like, no, we're partners. And she puts her hand out and she allows herself to get bit by the infected. Mm-hmm. And then they sit. And then, of course, Ellie doesn't turn. And her best friend does and realizes, oh my God, she did that for absolutely no reason. If she would have just waited, we would have both been fine, but now she's gonna die and I get to survive.
I like that. I think the only problem with that is that it is too reminiscent of Frank and Bill, of like one going, "You're dying, so I'll kill myself too."
Sure.
Now, if they had never like done that twist to Frank and Bill, then you're like, okay, great, do that but because it's like, oh well. We just had two gay characters do this. Here's another two gay characters doing the same thing.
That's valid.
And that would be my issue with it. But I think you could have done at least something similar in terms of let's see them, or one go mad, with the thing, and what does Ellie do? Can Ellie bring herself to kill her best friend? Or, let's see that scene play out. Because that might have been the... real gut punch, especially seeing like Ellie like break down in tears and all that kind of stuff. And do we need it? Probably not, but would it have made it better? Maybe. But yeah, I think that's the only flaw in that pitch, is that it's just like, well, we just saw two characters essentially do the same thing.
Yeah, I think if he said, oh, did you put the poison in both wines? And like, yep, let's go die together. If he was just saying that to lie to him so they can go to bed, and then Frank dies and Bill doesn't, like he chickened out or something, I could see it being a little too similar,
sure.
like where one dies, one doesn't. But
because both die.
But both
Fair
die.
Enough. Okay.
It's a little something.
Gotcha.
And then second Last of Us thing, have you heard the rumors of who may be playing Abby?
I don't think so.
Florence Pugh. And I was like,
oh, you know what? I may have seen something. Yeah.
That's awesome. I could see it. And I guess Florence Pugh has been working out and getting kind of jacked. Mm-hmm. So, and she's a bit younger looking than, say, Abby in the game. I could see it really working.
Yeah, I think That could, yeah. I mean, one, I like Florence Pugh. Two, I think she definitely has an Abby look to her, especially if she bulks up. And I think my big concern about the casting of Abby was, well, I can't see Bella Ramsey getting any taller.
No.
And Ellie was, not super tall, but you could tell she was like tall and
Yeah.
tallish and lanky compared to like, she was on the same height as Abby, where I think if you put Bella Ramsey against another normal 19, 20-year-old person or whatever, she's going to look small compared to her. So I think Florence Pugh, I think
they're
like
closer in height.
Florence Pugh is definitely taller, but not by much.
Not by much,
so it'd just be, I think that could work.
Yeah.
I think it could work really well.
I think that's good casting and hope to see it. And
do you think, well, no, I was going to say, like, watch her show up in, like, this final episode, but it's not, I don't know. That's not going to happen.
That's not gonna happen. I mean, I can see them doing a little hint of
for sure.
Just people screaming and, like, someone going, Dad, no, as Joel's taking off.
Yeah. Don't let Abby see this, or something. Yeah.
Something. One thing we talked about before is we felt bad for anybody who takes on this role because they're going to get a bunch of hate. And I think people genuinely like Florence Pugh, that it'll be harder to hate on her, and she'll be maybe a more liked character.
Well, I think if she got cast, I think everyone would be like, or at least most people go like, that's great. I can see it. It works. We love Florence Pugh. And then the show would air, and then one of the most, I mean, I hate giving it credit, like divisive games of all time. It's like, I can see season 2 being like, oh, I love season 1, but season 2 is doing all this other stuff. And it's fun. And it's like, I'm so tired of hearing like, quote unquote controversy. I'm not looking forward to that aspect of it. So even though I think her casting would be well received, I imagine like the story that they put out in season 2 or the changes they make is going to probably like make people hate a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. But I think people will be more forgiving of a TV show because TV shows and movies kill off characters all the time that you love. We've got kind of more conditioned to it. Whereas with the video game, what?
I'm just saying, like, don't spoil anything by
but because it was an interview, they're saying like because people like live the lives playing the game, you don't just watch it, you actually control it, you're a bit more invested, so people get upset because of certain deaths where you watch Game of Thrones and Pedro Pascal comes in as one of the most charismatic characters and you're like, oh yeah, the Viper, he's badass, he's going to be around for a minute, and nope, he certainly is
4
not.
episodes later.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. That's a whole other conversation. Is have you ever felt so immersed in a game where you're like, I've come close with Last of Us and with God of War. Like, I'll sing their praises. Like, they've made me really care about the franchise and the quality of storytelling. But I've never like played a game where like because I was playing it, I felt more involved. Or not more involved, because clearly I'm more involved because I'm making all the actions, but more invested. Like, I've watched plenty of movies or TV shows where like I've teared up. It's like, I love these characters. I like seeing them week to week. And maybe it's just like I can play a game in 3 days and then be done with it. It's like I've watched movies in 2 hours and like they've made me cry. But it's like, but I've never like played a game and gone like, wow, like I am bawling my eyes out, or like, because it's one of those things where also maybe it's because I've seen my character die a bunch. And it's like, I know I'm safe. I can always reload. That's my, it's like, it's great that people can feel that way, but I've never felt so connected to a game. I felt more connected to shows and to films, but maybe that's just the medium that I've chosen.
Yeah.
So anyway.
And if there's more talk, we'll put it here. All right, Last of Us, episode 8, titled "When We Are in Need." The snow episode, the Ellie gameplay episode, the part that it kind of almost feels like a DLC. It seems like they probably could have pulled that out and just reworked some things and not even had it. But I'm so glad it's in it because it's one of my favorite parts. And the moment she gets into the town, I instantly just wanted to start playing the game again. Like, I want to play this part. It's probably the part I'm the worst at, especially when you're leaving and like you could hear the bell ringing and you got to get through the snowstorm. There's like manuals and all this stuff you can find, but I get so turned around in that snowstorm. I miss everything. And it's like, just get me the fuck out of here. Game's almost over. I got enough supplies. We're good.
Yeah, I think this episode is definitely one a lot of fans of the game have been waiting for because it's probably the most popular level in the game, just because it's the one and only time you get to switch characters.
And you don't have to craft a fucking shiv, and you just get a knife, and you can sneak up on a ton of guys. Oh, it's so satisfying.
And you also have a bow and arrow, which I'm disappointed it's not in here. Like, I understand thematically why, because one, we've never established that she learned how to use one, and two, it's like when you're playing the game, she's just instantly good with it. Like, we have a mission in the game where Joel kind of teaches her how to shoot, and she backs you up in a gunfight.
Mm-hmm.
But you never see her learn how to. It's just like it's like she found a bow and arrow, and then she's just over the course of however many days or weeks that they were out in this wintry wonderland, she just learned how to hunt with a bow and arrow.
Yeah.
But this is just like, well, he got stabbed a couple days ago. She only has the rifle.
Yeah.
So why would she like pick up a bow and arrow?
Yeah. And it seems relatively unnecessary to put in unless it had a more important point to the plot. And it doesn't. So we have a rifle. We don't need to do the bow and arrow.
Where would she find one? And even if she did, like, would she be able to pull it back?
Yeah.
Because bows and arrows are kind of a pain in the ass.
And they degrade. Who knows how good it would be. Yeah. It's a perfectly fine video game pickup.
But it's also just kind of Ellie's weapon.
Yes.
And I guess that could definitely be like, if we're cutting to if in the next season we're 5 years in the future, she's grown up, she's learned how to use a bunch of different stuff. Yeah. She's a gatherer for a town. It makes sense that it's like, you don't have to explain. She just learned the bow and arrow in that time.
Yeah.
So that can still be her iconic weapon of next season. But I was still a little sad we don't get to see it.
Yeah. I'm still waiting for someone to throw a brick or a bottle in someone's face.
Crazy.
Like, this would have been a great episode to do that. Like, in that final fight, she chucks a flaming stick at him, but you're in a restaurant area. There should be a bottle somewhere. It would have been great for her to just get one right to the face and then start stabbing the dude. Mm-hmm. So we start off with Joel still sick and dying in the basement. And Ellie goes to get some food, does the whole deer thing, and meets up with, what was his name? David?
David, yeah.
David. In the game, I think it's a little more obvious that he's a creep. Uh-huh. I think it's just like character design wise, you go, there's something up with this guy. Yeah. You know something's wrong. I think the show is better, but just because of the world you live in, I don't think anyone's ever going to buy that this is just a nice priest dude who's trying to help his community. Like, no, there's something fucked up with this.
Like, you guys would have had, chances are you probably would have had to do some terrible things to survive the past 20 years. Because in a post-apocalyptic situation, nice people don't survive typically. Yeah. Mm-hmm. You have to become, you either are a monster or become a monster to survive, and then slowly society kind of like finds a norm.
Yeah.
But right now, probably a bunch of bad dudes. But we've also established that in just like an episode or 2 episodes before, there's nice communities out there.
Yeah.
So that it's fully logical that they found another one.
Yeah. But when you only have 9 episodes in a show, you're not finding a second good community.
Ellie forgot that she was in a 9-episode season this year.
Yeah.
So you like this episode?
I did like this episode. It hit all the things I loved. Her breaking the dude's finger, or like being trapped and fucking with the dude, and revealing that she's infected, because she hasn't revealed to anybody that she is, except for little man.
Sam,
yeah.
Or Henry. No, Sam's the little one.
Yeah, Sam's the little one.
Okay, yeah.
And it's just, straight from the game, everything looks good. That lodge looks great. That kitchen with the butcher's block looks great. Even, all the little houses that they hide in. Amazing. I don't really have any complaints about this episode, except our normal nitpicking of like, ooh, why can't she use a bow and arrow? When is she gonna throw a brick? Ooh.
I'll say this might be my least favorite episode of the season. Yeah. And it's very accurate to the game. Like, it hits all the major points. There's no like crazy drastic change. The biggest change is you see like the town function
Yeah.
slightly. Like you see this group and you see them eating people, but they don't realize that they're eating people because only David and like the top 4 people or a handful of people like know that it's like, oh yeah, we'll bury your dad in the spring. But it's like, nope, they're feeding them quote unquote venison. But it's that like this girl ate her own dad and didn't know. And it's just a great little, I think that's a great little detail. And just like, they're not all just crazy cannibal people. It's a small group who are like, this is the only way we can keep everybody alive.
Yeah. In the game, it really does feel like, no, this is just a group of crazy fucking dudes who are all like in agreement. This is what we're going to do.
Yeah, this is what we're doing.
I didn't remember seeing even any women. I don't recall if there were women in the group.
Well, we all know in the future it's all just big henchmen that work a town, and that's the nice thing about game 2 is just like it's like half and half. There's a lot of women that you fight in that game, but that's just a thing, whatever. But yeah, it was my understanding that everyone in the town was a crazy cannibal, and they were all just out to get you so they could like feed on you.
Yeah, but in the game, you only see the town people as people going on patrols for you to sneak around to stealth kill.
Nobody was just like hanging out.
Yeah, and you don't
playing
see
a PSP.
You don't see a meeting where they're talking to the kids or anything like that. But yeah, there's only so much you can do.
Sure. But I just feel my major complaint with this episode, it just feels like everything was really, really fast.
It was fast.
It was a 50-minute episode, and I think that's
but that's including credits and next on.
Yeah, the episode was probably closer to like 42.
Yeah.
And it's weird because like I said, it covers all the bases. It hits all the major points of the game. It's just it just flew by, and it just feel like I didn't really have time to like, I don't know, sit with anything. And just the fact that like it just seems like in the game there was time for Joel to really like recover, but this was like, oh, I gave him 2 shots of penicillin, and then 2 hours later he's like up walking around and just like taking dudes out. Which is like movie TV stuff. We've seen it a million times. It just I don't know. It's just like for a level that I love so much, it just felt like it was like missing something for me.
If this was a 20 episode season, like a lot of shows, we would spend an episode or 2 here, and you would have the time to really convince Ellie that everyone's good and that there is no wrongdoing, and more time for Joel to heal. You could really let that stuff breathe and take some time. But because we are more on a time crunch, it's like hit the main beats and let's keep moving.
Yeah, but I think that'll be my main complaint when the season's over. I don't want a 20 episode season.
Yeah,
I think this should have been 12.
12 is like the sweet spot when you're telling a good story.
Like there's so many seasons now, especially of like premiere TV. Like every season of Game of Thrones, with the exception of the last 2, is like 10. And so many other prestige dramas are like, we do it in 10, some even in 8. And I mean, but it's just a matter of like,
what are you telling?
What story are you telling, and how many episodes do you need to properly tell that story? And it just feels like now that there's some distance and we're on the final episode, it's just like, oh yeah, this show has like flown by. This 25, 40-hour game has been condensed down to a
5 hour,
6-hour story. And obviously a lot of video game runtime is exploring and combat, and it's like, you have to take all that out. I'm not saying I needed to be super long. It's just, I think there just needs to just take its time a little bit more. Just draw it out a little bit. And I think I'd be more into it. It's still a great show, but I think that there's still room to grow. And that's just like my major complaint of this episode. But a positive note, great to see Troy Baker. The original voice actor for Joel in this episode. I wish he was one of the dudes who got taken out by Joel in that interrogation scene. Because it just seems weird that you have Joel in a show with Joel, and you don't have the Joels meet.
A meeting of 2 Joels.
And then Ellie kills the original Joel. It's like, it should be Joel killing the original Joel. Because like, you didn't need James, that James character to be with David
Yeah.
for that death. It's like break them up and then have Joel kill him. And that's like a fun little like, oh, look, they're meeting and he kills him. This is the new Joel. In a weird, like meta subconscious way. Like it really doesn't matter.
No.
But it's just for me, I would have preferred that because like Joel interrogating these two like meth head goon dudes. It's like, I don't care about that. Like, oh, this would have been fun to like.
He should have been the first one he killed in the basement and stabbed in the neck. Or one of the interrogations. Yeah, because it's
like because you still have the like he still gets to meet Ellie because he was with David and like goes back for the drugs. So it's like he gets to meet Ellie and Joel, but he doesn't get any scenes with Joel.
Yeah,
and maybe it's one of those things where they were like, well, it might be distracting to have these two together. It's like they didn't want to meet each other, so they would talk about it. But it's like I don't believe that. Just put them together. Have Joel like stab him in the knee. I think that would have been a lot of fun. And then. Yeah, I just thought that was a wasted opportunity.
I think it's more of it's a screenwriting thing of, well, this guy is the main bad guy's main henchman, so he doesn't get taken out early. He needs to be towards the end, and it's just like that's what you do. You wouldn't put that main henchman to die early, but he didn't have to be his main number two. You know, he could have just been a guy.
One of the guys, yeah.
Yeah, but once again, minor nitpick. You know. But one of the sweetest moments that caught me off guard was just Joel calling Ellie baby girl, and just like you forget that that's what he called his daughter. And like, even though we know they care for each other, it's like it's cemented now. Yeah. This is his new daughter. He will do anything for her. And it's just going to lead to, such amazing television next episode.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad they kept it in, and you pretty much have to. It's one of it's the turning point of the entire storyline, essentially. And the way they did that flaming barn sequence, like it looked just like the game. Yeah. I'm annoyed she didn't step on one plate.
One plate,
just one. But see Ellie like brutally murder this guy. Now in the game, Joel bursts into the room while she's like hacking at his face and stops him and says, it's okay, baby girl. And it's like she walks out and then he sees her, which, it's still the same effect. It doesn't really like lessen it, but for a show that seems to like want to cement Ellie as like kind of a psycho, it might have been nice for Joel to like see her go full psycho. Yeah. And maybe that's the reason why they did that. It's like, Joel hasn't seen Ellie do these things, and maybe if he had seen her do them, it's like, oh well, my daughter wouldn't do this horrible thing. Like we've seen everything Ellie, like the crazy things, quote unquote, Ellie has done has been outside of Joel's line of sight. Because Joel's the father figure; he's protective. He doesn't want to expose his daughter to these horrible things. But clearly, she's like cool with mangling a dude's face with a machete. So like, I don't know if I dislike it or if it's just like or it's just on par. So it didn't better or worsen anything for me. But I'm just interested. I'm interested as to like why they chose to go that route. But that's my theory. It's just like they don't want Joel to recognize she's a nut job, even though like Ellie is kind of a nut job. So we'll see. Anything else on this episode?
I don't think anything else for this. I do have a couple things I want to talk about for next episode.
Oh, we know what we'll bring up real quick. Snowstorm. They alluded to it.
Yeah.
And I guess it was like, I assume it's just a pain in the ass. It's actually really cold.
Yeah.
Budgeting issues. I mean, it's HBO and they spend a ton of money. Yeah. But it's, they didn't do an egregious amount of money for the first season of Game of Thrones. Yeah. It wasn't until it was like huge. They were like, all right, we'll throw $10 million an episode.
But definitely not a snowstorm. It was windy and snow was blowing around.
Yeah.
But not the storm from the game.
Yeah, I mean, obviously that's hard to recreate unless you're going like full-blown CGI, but it would have been cool to see like Joel or Ellie or somebody just do some like snowstorm stealth kills and stuff.
And you fight infected in the game, and that's scary, not being able to see in front of you, and all of a sudden there's a monster. And I think that could have been fun to do. Maybe it's a bit much trying to shoehorn them into this episode.
Sure. Yeah, I don't care that the infected weren't in this episode because, the real threat is the humans.
Yeah.
But, and that was the other thing that was kind of disappointing was Joel walking into like the slaughter room, and I was waiting for there to be like a good quality jump scare with that. Just like, oh look, nope, there's just bodies there.
Yeah.
Yeah, they eat people.
Yeah.
It just kind of seemed like I wish he was like looking around and like bumped something, and he turned around and there was just like all these dead bodies.
Yeah, like he's pushing through the meat to get to something, and then realize like he sees a fucking nipple and goes like, "What the hell is that?" And then a hairy chest, and then a ring on someone's finger,
and it's like, oh, I see what this is. This is scarier now.
Yeah, this is a way worse situation than it was.
So that was kind of disappointing. But another good episode.
Yeah.
Looking forward to the last one. It's the last one of The Last of Us, and there's probably the most iconic scene in the game next episode that I'm looking forward to seeing if they pull
giraffes.
Well, yeah. So I mean, they're definitely gonna do it.
You think they'll do giraffes?
Oh, 10,000%.
I think if they did it, we would have seen a little bit of a snippet.
I think in the trailer for next week, you see them in like
on the patio or the balcony.
Yeah. I think it's pretty clear, like, they saw it, they had a nice moment, and that was like their dramatic afterwards. There's just no way you can't do it.
Yeah.
Because that's always the scene that everyone talks about, like, oh, this is the scene that like broke me. It's like, why?
Yeah,
I mean, it's a cute scene. I really like that scene. It's great, but it's not like the scene of the game.
It's a happy scene. You know?
It's a nice, lovely break in between the chaos, but it's not like it made me emote.
No.
It's like, oh, this is cute. You said you had stuff for
I mean,
episode?
one thing was giraffes. I was going to ask if you think it was. But the other thing is we see Ellie's mom, and we know we're going to see her give birth, but they also have a shot of an infected like crawling at her real fast. So do you think it's just like she gets bit as she's giving birth, so it's like enough of the infection got to the baby but not full-fledged, kind of like a Blade situation? Ellie Blade?
Yeah, I mean, the second day the show dropped a trailer, I believe you saw Ashley Johnson in the trailer.
I didn't notice because I'm bad at that. I had to be pointed out to me.
Yeah, it was like the one thing that stood out to me. So I was like, okay, well, it looks like just from this shot that she's like in a stress, and it just seems like, okay, well, that would be kind of a cool thing if they make, because we never see Ellie's mom in the game. We only just hear Marlene talk about her, but it's like, oh, that would be kind of cool for Ashley Johnson to be Ellie's mom, as a fun way to do that. And then in this trailer we see that, oh, an infected is, but it's just like, what makes Ellie special? Like, of course, if you're gonna like come up with a random explanation, this would be the one. It's like, oh, she was infected while she was in the womb, and somehow that built up an immunity. So that makes sense. I'm kind of surprised that they're doing that, if that's the explanation, because like the game makes no attempt to explain. It's just like, this is just something she has.
But I like that. It's when it comes to shows like this, I do like a little bit of an explanation, and even though it's not necessary, I think it's if that is the case, this is a good addition to the show.
I saw a post on the internet today, and it's that classic thing of just like an actor saying a cryptic thing to string up not controversy, but just get people talking, where Bella Ramsey said that the final episode of the season will be very divisive. And it's like, well, what does that mean? And it's like, could it be we're going to explain why Ellie's immune? Is that the divisive thing?
Okay.
Is the Joel's choice at the end of the first game, is that a divisive thing? Like, should he have done it? Should he have not? Or are they going to like change the ending? And that's going to be divisive.
No.
Which doesn't seem like that. With
doesn't how seem we've seen the whole show, they're not going to.
It doesn't seem logical to me. So you doing that would just go like, well, this is how we fuck with the fans.
Yeah.
And it's like, this is how we make it super accurate, and then the last second we go, we got you.
Yeah.
It's like, no. So I think one, it's just a marketing ploy to like make sure you tune in, because like you don't know what's going to happen. But I think we're going to get everything we expect, other than the Ashley Johnson stuff. I think that might be the quote unquote divisive thing.
I could see,
because that's not in the game.
her saying this will be divisive. Now, did she say it was divisive for viewers, for fans of the game? Was she specific on who?
Now, now this was just like the headline.
Okay.
I didn't read the whole article because I didn't want like spoilers, and also I don't typically care about this kind of stuff. I just wanted to point it out.
Yeah.
And it could be one of those things where it's just like, oh yeah, it'd be very. She might have just said fans. Could be fans of the show. Could be fans of the game. I think it was just like fans, but that's just. And this is also just like clickbaity stuff from the website, possibly, where it's just like, oh, it'd be very divisive when Ellie eats that pickle sandwich as opposed to
the peanut butter jelly.
The peanut butter jelly, it's just like, because it's an on record, like Ellie in the game doesn't like pickles. It's just like, it's just a way to get you to click. But if it's just a generic, like, hey guys, like, be prepared for, whatever, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be divisive because people who don't know the ending will be, was this a good thing? Was this a bad thing? Who made the right choice? And I
don't think this episode will be divisive at all. No. And I think it's just an actor going like, I'm trying to boost ratings for the show. And they told me to say this.
Going back to the Florence Pugh thing, another thing that why people think she got hired. Someone asked Bella Ramsey, like, who was the hardest person or who's the most intimidating person to work with? And she said Florence Pugh. And I guess, like, someone else in the interview, like...
Did they do a movie together?
No. That's the whole thing. It's like, they may have already filmed something for this. And so she's given, like, a little bit of a spoiler, not meaning to. And someone, like, gave her a look of, like, did you just say that? Like, you're not allowed to be talking about this, but not actually saying it. So maybe there's a little more, and maybe she took the question wrong.
I'm surprised I haven't seen this then, because like usually if like that kind of Mark Ruffalo spoils something or Tom Holland, like, well, can you believe that this is?
And who knows? This could all be bullshit. From what I got,
all be fake.
Someone's just making up shit just to make me look like a fucking idiot. That's what I get for not doing my research.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Which she could have just absolutely gotten the information wrong and like, who's an actor you think you would be intimidated to work with? And she said Florence Pugh. You take it completely different.
Florence Pugh was actually one of the White Walkers in the final season of Game of Thrones. She was the giant that squished. And she was like, but CGI and all that stuff. Like she was very scary on the day, but like obviously, that's my theory. Is Florence Pugh played the undead frost giant?
Yeah, that makes sense. With her massive stature.
Yeah.
Frost giant. Cool. Anything else?
No. It's been a pleasure watching The Last of Us week to week with you, and it's going to be sad that the show's ending, and then we're going to go back to not watching.
Yeah. Well, and it's ending perfectly because you're going to be having your kid in like 2 months. It would be real annoying. Not even. To start another show and be like, hey, Steve, are you ready to watch this? And you're like, oh, no.
I got slept in 3 days.
I got a baby, and I don't have time for your stupid little podcast. And then, I let a gas leak happen and because I'm jealous of the baby. I'm not going to kill your kid. I'm putting it on record,
well,
Steve.
We're going to have to cut all this.
I will not kill your kid. That's the Ben promise.
You heard it here, folks. Well, tune in soon for the Ben and Nick show, where they.
We'll figure it out when it comes, but there may be a chance that Nick steps in because Steve is going to be a little bit busy.
At least for like a week or two. That's how long babies are a problem.
Yeah. Once you get past the first week, they're house trained. They're good.
Yeah, they're practically driving themselves to school.
Yeah, you let them out in the yard, and they're good. So let's get to our main topics.
Let's do it.
We got two things. We're gonna start off with Champions.
Well, you want to give some backstory as to how we came to see Champions?
Yeah, and I did mention it the week before. It was my birthday Monday, and Regal does Mystery Movie Mondays, and it was the final Monday of February, and we were just wondering, well, what could this be? Let's look at everything. It's probably Creed 3 that comes out this weekend. Okay, well, if it's 2 weeks from now, It could be 65. Maybe it's Scream 6. From certain context clues, we knew it probably wasn't going to be Scream. And then Operation Fortune came out of nowhere. And like, okay, it's probably going to be that because you don't need to promote Creed 3. You don't need to promote 65. But maybe you need to promote Orson Fortune and his escapades. But we were wrong on all those. A movie that I had only seen a trailer for a week before. I think it was before Cocaine Bear, or oh no, I think it was before Magic Mike 3.
Okay.
And it's called Champions. It's starring Woody Harrelson and Caitlin Olsen, and it's a sports movie, and it's a feel good. Learning a lesson of getting along with others and becoming part of a family that you weren't used to, and changing your old curmudgeon-y ways and becoming a kinder person. It's definitely not the movie we were hoping for, and I think if it wasn't my birthday, some of the people there would have just left. Nobody was excited to see this, and so it kind of...
Well, I'll backtrack you there a little bit. Like, don't get me wrong, would I have paid to see this movie? Absolutely not, had I known what it was. Would I have watched it if it came on TV? Probably not. But like once like it was, we were already there and it was decided that we were watching it, I was like, oh, cool. Yeah, I'll watch this. Yeah. I was not disappointed. I mean, I guess I was disappointed to not watch Creed 3, but I wasn't like devastated.
And we didn't leave the movie going, wow, what an utter piece of shit.
I wanted to see this more than Operation Fortune. But that's in Operation Fortune's defense. I don't even know if I've actually seen a trailer, and it just I saw the poster, I was like, I know it's gonna be garbage. Yeah. At least I expected it to be.
But maybe it's great. I thought The Gentleman was gonna be garbage, but Touché. That's a really good movie. Guy Ritchie does know how to make good movies, minus Aladdin.
I got the trailer for the. I saw Creed 3 today. I saw the trailer for Guy Ritchie's other new movie this year, The Covenant, with Jake Gyllenhaal. I love Jake Gyllenhaal. That movie doesn't look good at all. I don't care that much.
That's like him in the Middle East, and he like escapes.
Yeah,
he was injured, and someone took care of him. And
one of the, I think they're in Afghanistan, and I think one of the people from Afghanistan joins his military or the American military, and like becomes an interpreter, saves his life, and then he gets in trouble. So then Jake Gyllenhaal goes back to Afghanistan to get his buddy out. But it just looks so play by numbers.
Nah, pass.
So it seems like this would be below Jake Gyllenhaal's radar. Okay. It's surprising to see him in it.
He loves his war movies. He did Jarhead. He did Brothers.
Yeah, but Jarhead and Brothers are actually good. Yeah. Whatever.
Yeah. So we saw Champions. Steve, you want to give I know I gave a little bit of a synopsis, but why is Woody Harrelson with these kids?
So Woody Harrelson is an assistant coach in college basketball, and his dream is to one day work in the NBA. And
were they in Nebraska or Iowa?
I think Iowa.
Okay.
I remember because you've taught me what does Iowa stand for thing.
And idiots out wandering around.
So every time I see Iowa, it always pops in my brain. So
I don't actually believe that. I just lived in Nebraska for a long time. And, every state is a rival with whatever state you're touching. And that was the thing.
Yeah. So if I remember correctly, they're in Iowa. Anyway, he is an assistant coach, and the head coach is like making a call during an important basketball game, and Woody Harrelson's like, that's not the play to move, like you need to listen to me, and his coach is just like, dude, you need to back off, this isn't your place. And so Woody Harrelson like gets angry and like shoves the coach and then walks off. Of course, he gets fired, and once he gets fired, he gets drunk, crashes his car into a police car, and the judge is like, well, either you can coach basketball for special needs people, or you can go to jail for 18 months, which seems like a crazy
90 days versus 18 months. That's crazy.
Yeah. And of course, Woody Harrelson is like not looking forward to this. Is below him. He was like, his dream is to be in the NBA. Now he's doing community service as this as a coach for these people who seem to like, they're uncoachable, and he's just so frustrated.
It's bad news bears.
But through their enthusiasm and love of the game and like having good times, and he learns to like appreciate players and become a better person, and falls in love with Caitlin Olsen's character, and helps this team turn itself around and maybe or maybe not become champions by the end. We'll get to it.
And it is 100% a paint by numbers movie that you know exactly how it's going to pan out. There's no surprises in this. Mm-hmm. Like even my roommate who loves movies but doesn't always can't always see what the future has. She leaned to me and was like, so the one kid who does that weird shot it's gonna come down to him and he's gonna have to make the final shot.
Of
course it is. Yeah.
You knew it immediately.
And it's like, oh, is he gonna get a job opportunity that takes him away from these people and the woman who's falling for him? Of course. And does he turn it down? Of course. Like, do they win? That's the thing of like, it could go either way.
Yeah.
And spoilers, they don't win, but they're just happy because the guy who does his specialty shot actually got it like to hit the rim, got it as close as he possibly
doing it for 5 years and has never even hit the rim, which we'll get to that. But anywho, so let's talk about the positives of this movie.
Okay.
Caitlin Olsen,
always a treat.
She is a comedy god who I think has not really gotten the credit she deserves.
Mm-hmm. She's seems to be in the shadow of her co-stars in Sunny, but that's ridiculous. I think she shines brighter than everyone. She's my favorite.
I think she was killing it in this movie. Not that like every line she was saying was like super funny, but she brought more to this movie than anyone else.
Yeah. This could have been like a Brie Larson sort of role that just falls flat and just is a woman of man's desires. It could have been such a simple role, but she really gave it something more.
And there was some jokes that I thought worked. The one joke that got me early was I forget the character's name, so I'm just going to call him Glenn. Or just name him Sunny characters. I was like, hey, I'm Glenn. I'm your homie with an extra chromie.
Yeah.
I don't know why. It caught me off guard. I thought it was really funny.
They're using that in ads. That line. I'm very surprised.
It's probably the best joke of the movie.
Probably. But I can see it being...
But no one else could make that joke but him, obviously.
But I can see someone like my mom or my aunt watching that and go, oh, that's disrespectful. He didn't write that line. They're making him, and that's not very nice.
Yeah. I guess my question would be, is the reason they didn't market this movie so there wouldn't be like articles about like what is okay and what isn't? It's like no one saw this movie anyway, so there's no need to talk about it. Or they were just like, we're not going to market this movie because it's not very good.
I don't know. Because it's good enough that it deserves to make its budget back and be applauded for the things it does right. But it is kind of the perfect movie to be this mystery movie because they're getting $5 out of all these people.
Yeah, for sure.
And yeah, $5 out of 100 people is better than $20 out of 10 people.
Sure. So Caitlin Olsen's great. There was some solid jokes. I like basketball. That's a plus. So it was nice seeing some basketball. And it's also nice whenever films can like find a way to bring in people with special needs and like use them, and you get a whole sort of slew of kooky characters. I wish though you got any of them to do anything interesting other than Caitlin Olsen's brother. I mean, the girl, she was the sassy one. She was the sassy one. I liked her. I liked Caitlin Olsen's brother, but everyone else was just kind of like, oh, that's the guy who's in a band.
Yeah.
But like, he doesn't have any like special skills.
There's not a lot to these characters besides like, I'm the one that does the weird shot. I'm the one with the colored hair. I'm the one that's smelly. I'm the one that works in a restaurant. They're kind of like one note.
Yeah.
You don't really get to know them. You get to know these guys better than the guys from Magic Mike.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
But they did need maybe a little more. But you could only focus on so many. And they like Caitlin Olsen's brother, and then the one that had the shithead boss that wouldn't let him come to games. that's kind of the main focus ones.
Yeah, well, I guess not so much that I really needed to like know their backstory, because like there is like a nice little montage where it's like this one works at this place, this one does this in their free time, this one does this. I liked, it gave them some agency so I could like differentiate them other than like the one with the blue hair or whatever. But I just wish that if everyone had like a specific skill on the basketball court that they were like good at. And it's funny that the one guy with the terrible shot is named Showtime and they never say his real name, I don't think. But my whole thing is just like, and I'm sure that there may be some regulation as to like how much time everyone needs to play, but get Showtime off the court. Put like, he's your guy. It's like, oh, someone got injured, put Showtime in, and then he makes the shot at the end. Because like every game they're going like, Woody Harrelson's on the sidelines like freaking out. He's like, why is Showtime taking the shot? Stop doing that. And he's like, he takes time to work with Showtime. I thought maybe that was going to be the thing. Like, oh, Showtime was going to get the basket and he was going to like go and like shoot it backwards, but it's a fake out and then turns around and then shoots for real and then makes it. I was like, that's character growth. But that doesn't happen.
You need characters who like, oh, you got to give me the ball because I can dunk.
I forgot about Darius.
I don't remember.
I think it was Darius.
But fuck that character. I mean, no, I mean he has a good point, but he's so in it so little that like he's not even part of the team until the very, very end.
Yeah, like the last game.
But if you had the character who like, oh, I want the ball because I want to make these crazy 3-point shots all the time, but they keep missing. Then you have Woody Harrelson working with them. Like, no, you need to be the person that is blocking because you're the biggest dude, or this person needs to work on their dribbling. But they all just kind of like, no, we're just playing and you all play how you want to play. It didn't feel like he was really building the team because they were already friends. But you normally get the, like, we don't work together very well sort of thing. They're passing the ball and hitting each other in the head and tripping over each other. But he's able to unify them. And there was really none of that.
Yeah. The only like real basketball skill you ever see him teach them is like the pick and roll, which I thought was kind of like a funny little bit where he's like, oh, well, you told me to stand like a statue, so he doesn't move for the rest of the game or the play or whatever. I was like, oh, that's like a funny way of doing that. But yeah, that's the only thing you really see him teach. It's like, well, let's practice passing. But then it's like one game they're bad, and then the very next game, because he's like nicer to them, they just do really well, and they just keep winning. So I mean, it's like it. Also, we haven't even really talked about Woody Harrelson. Woody Harrelson should not have been in this movie.
No, wrong choice.
Yeah, get an actual comedy actor, and like Woody Harrelson, like has had funny performances, and he's a talented actor, like great on True Detective. I think he does his best work in drama. But yeah, you needed somebody else to work with Caitlin Olsen because she was given 100%, and she could not save whatever performance Woody. It seemed like Woody Harrelson owed the Farley brothers a favor or something. Like,
or he actually did get a DUI and his community service was to make this movie.
Yeah. It just seemed like, not that he seemed like he didn't want to be there, but if you told me like Woody Harrelson didn't want to do this movie but had to for some reason, I'd be like, oh yeah, that makes sense. Not because I think Woody Harrelson's too good for this, but he didn't. Why him?
Yeah. It's like, like basketball, and I have someone in my family who has special needs, so I wanted to do something for them. Okay, I can believe it, but it just feels more like of a paycheck movie.
Yeah. I mean, it's been a while since I've seen it, so maybe it hasn't aged as well. But I think if you want a special needs sports movie, The Ringer is a lot of fun.
That's your go-to,
That's the go-to. Even though it's a Johnny Knoxville vehicle, I remember, at the time when that movie came out, I thought it was hilarious.
It still is pretty funny. It has its moments.
Yeah, I think there's some stuff that still holds up. And Brian Cox is fantastic in that movie. He's so funny. So if it's between The Ringer and Champions, I'd say The Ringer. But if you just want like a nice little sweet movie to watch, like the Champions isn't going to be
it's
upset you in any way.
Completely inoffensive and perfectly fine for a movie. A little long, 2 hours and like 4 minutes. Comedies should not be that long. And I guess this isn't a straight comedy, but I'd say it's more comedy than drama.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, just they could have cut a bit. It's funny that was like, they really didn't develop all these characters, but it needed to be shorter as well.
Yes, there's a way to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, do you make it kind of like a Coach Carter scenario, just with special needs athletes, or do you like just try and make it funnier? Because I think this movie, if it had just a few more better jokes, like it could have been like a real fun time.
Yeah.
But it waste. It was a waste. Or I don't know if there needs to be maybe more comedic. Like you had Cheech Marin there. Like I think Cheech Marin could have, or like that character could have been funny and had some good jokes. But it just seemed like, I guess we'll just throw in Cheech Marin here. Like, that could have been played by anybody.
Anybody.
Because he didn't offer really anything other than being like kind of like a sweet old man character.
Yeah.
Caitlin Olsen's mom could have got a funny older actress to be her mom. Wasted character. I don't know. I don't know. Like they're not important, but they could have added jokes.
Sure.
So I just would have like this movie is a C- for me.
Yeah.
It could have been a C+ if it was funnier. Well,
I
guess it would have just been any grade higher if it was funnier.
Yeah.
So that's not a fair assessment, but I wish it was funnier.
Is there anybody you would rather see instead of Woody Harrelson? Because I know we talked about how because Caitlin Olsen works so well with her co-stars that you could put probably any one of the three main leads. I mean, minus Danny DeVito, that'd be a little weird. You could put anybody in that role and it would have been really good. But to be a love interest to any of them is a little weird.
Yeah, I think I can't see Rob being the one to carry the film. And
but that would have been a cute, husband-wife vehicle.
And I think Charlie Day as an actor would have really brought some funny energy to the basketball, especially like when he's freaking out at the kids, like, no, don't take the shot, or it's like, oh my God, like pass the or whatever. I think that could have been good, but I wouldn't have believed him as like a basketball guy.
Yeah.
So
it's like I was never able to play because I am so short, but I could coach the hell out of a team.
Sure. I mean, in this kind of movie, it wouldn't really bother. It doesn't matter. It would just be one of those things. It's like I don't know if I'd see him as like an NBA guy. So I think Glenn could work because he's got that angry energy that would make sense of like why he would push, and it's like, oh yeah, I played basketball back in the day. He's got the look for it. He's got the comedy chops for it. But yeah, it would have been kind of weird seeing like brother and sister make out and stuff.
So I'm gonna say like Jason Sudeikis. This would have been a perfectly good movie for him.
Honestly, like any SNL dude, pretty much. Bill Hader, I think, could have worked.
Oh yeah, that would have been good. He was in a basketball movie kind of already.
Yeah, and I mean, does Jason Sudeikis want to do another like coaching thing if he's doing Ted Lasso?
Oh, that's true.
Maybe that's the thing. It's just like all the actors they wanted have already done basketball.
Maybe.
Well, Woody Harrelson was White Man Can't Jump. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Maybe that's why they got him. It's like, let's get the white guy can't jump guy to do another basketball movie.
Jason Bateman could have worked.
Jason Bateman would have been great.
Would have been a good one.
I think it was just this movie could have gone up a few points if they got a better lead and wrote some more jokes in there. Yeah. At least better jokes, because some of the jokes didn't land at all.
And Woody Harrelson's arc is just, I have to do this thing. I get a chance to leave, but I'm not. He like instantly likes them from the get-go. There's no confrontation except with the one player who doesn't want to play.
Yeah.
Who, he has a totally legit reason. But he comes in and it's just like, hey guys, I'm your coach. We're all friends. It's like there's no struggle I felt of him going, I don't like these people. Get the fuck away from me. And then coming to maybe his own prejudice and like, oh, okay, just because they are special needs doesn't mean they're not people. And
we basically had like two scenes of him being a bad person beforehand to establish like, well, he already had hooked up with Caitlin Olsen before he left the college game, and they were like, oh, he's kind of a douche because he wasn't very nice to her like when she was like leaving, or he's like money's on the table kind of thing. For an Uber, not because he thought she was a prostitute. But it's like, okay, so he's gonna, and then him being in the courtroom saying the R word, and it's like, why don't you call them by? Or he's like, I thought that was actually like kind of a funny joke though. It's like when he says the R word, and then they're like, we don't call them. It's like, well, what should I call them? And she goes, you can call them by their names. And it's like, oh yeah.
But if I need a collective word for all of them, a generalized term.
Like I just thought that was like a clever way of doing that. And then the first practice and the first game is essentially just like, oh, I'll never be able to teach these guys. But then he helps the one kid take a shower, which out of context sounds weird.
Yeah.
But you'll see in the movie like why that's good. It's just like, oh, one scene later, he's like, all right, guys, I got this now.
Yeah.
And it's just never. And in some regard, I like that because it's like, why does every character that in a movie that works with special needs people have to like be a jerk to special needs people?
Sure.
And then learn like, oh, they can do other things, and then be nice. It's like, oh, well, like I'm in this now. I might as well treat them with kindness and respect.
Yeah, and he doesn't even have to be like against people with special needs. He could just be like, I don't like kids. I deal with adults and professionals. I don't want to do this team of ragamuffins. It could be more of just, I don't like you because I'm forced to be in this situation. And there's not even that.
I'm glad you bring this point up, Ben, because I forgot about it until now. How old are these people?
I have no idea. Between 14 and 37. These kids.
Because some of them have been like, one I think said that he's been doing this league for 5 years. So let's assume this team has been together roughly for 5 years. Because there's got to be like an age range. It's like this is the 20 to 25 league, or this is the 14 to 18 league. Like, because they're old enough to have jobs.
Yeah, and live on their own.
Yeah. So it seems like they were all like in their 20s, maybe even some of them in their like early 30s. But it always seemed like they were kind of treated as like a kid group, and maybe that's just like just kind of part of it. I don't want to get into that, but
because we also don't know.
It just seemed I didn't know what how. Yeah, I just didn't know how old they were. It was really confusing.
It's not like they were, we all go to school together and this is an after-school program. This just seemed like it's the YMCA and people have dumped these kids here to just dick around.
Yeah, but there's like a league and they're going to other towns, and then it's like, I think it was part of the Special Olympics to go to the championship.
I believe it was.
And it just, I didn't quite follow the hierarchy of the organization itself, and I wish I had some clarification on that. That's what I'm trying to say. Because I just didn't know how to follow like who's playing these games, and it's like, oh, they need to like travel accommodations, but they're not giving them money to travel to the games.
Yes,
which I thought was weird. And also, I wish they had real jerseys. They only really got real jerseys for the like championship game. Like everyone else was just like, oh well, they just threw on some red rags for this team and it was blue rags for this team. It's like, now your team's like,
that's one of the things that you do at the end where it's just like, oh, we're not even a real team. We can't even afford uniforms. And then Woody Harrelson comes out and they all have the uniforms with all their nicknames that he's given them throughout the time, and it's a sweet moment. But no. I want to give a shout out to Casey Metcalf. He played Marlin. I think he was the funniest on the group. He had kind of a silly voice and everything.
With the glasses and the helmet. Yeah, I liked
everything
him too.
he said was very funny. Yeah. He's the standout for me.
I can agree with that.
Anything else about Champions? What did I give it?
I will say that I think that the last thing I'll say is I think the brother, Kalen Olsen, and her brother's storyline where like he wanted to move into the group home with his friends and she was like very much against it. And like that kind of payoff at the end when Woody Harrelson makes a big speech. It's like, you guys don't need to win because you're all champions because you do this and you do this and you do this. And then he's like, I'm not a champion yet. And then confronts his sister, not really confronts his sister, but like lets his sister know like this is how I feel, and she'd be okay with it. I like that moment. I thought that stuff worked for me, and it was nice that there was like at least one sort of like emotional arc for one of the players, because like that's what this movie really should have been about, was the players, not so much like Woody Harrelson. C-.
Yep, I also gave it a C-. It's perfectly fine. It does all the things well enough, but it doesn't break any mold. It doesn't challenge the storytelling of a sports movie. Yeah, it's perfectly fine. Yeah.
Well, before we get into Creed, I wanted to bring out one last thing real quick.
Okay.
That we'll spend 2 minutes on. They released the cast for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to get your thoughts on what you like, what you don't like.
Sure.
So it's quite a collective group of people. We have Paul Rudd as Mondo Gecko.
Okay.
I don't know who Mondo Gecko is. Is that good casting? It's like, I'm a huge fan of Ninja Turtles, but I think you're more aware of Ninja Turtles lore than I am.
Saying like, oh, is that good casting for these random ass characters who may have only been in 2 episodes that were only created just to have another toy? It's hard to say.
Well, I'm asking if it's good casting, because some of these I think is good casting. Like Giancarlo Esposito as Baxter Stockman.
Yep.
I think it's great casting.
That's good. Yeah.
We got Jackie Chan as Master Splinter. Works for me.
Good.
I love
it.
Seth Rogen and John Cena as Bebop and Rocksteady.
I do like that.
I can see that working. Especially like Seth Rogen's iconic laugh, I feel like would come out of a warthog type character, which he's already played in Lion King. So
that's funny. and
sense.
He's going to be Donkey Kong in the same year, so just a lot of animal voiceover work for him.
Natasha Dimitru, who I don't know who that is playing Wingnut. Never heard of that character before. Do you know Wingnut?
Yeah, Wingnut and Screwloose. Yeah, it's like a big bat guy and his little mosquito friend.
Oh, all right. Maya Rudolph as Cynthia Outram.
Oh. Okay, so Krang is going to be in this? Because aren't the Outrams, isn't that Krang species?
Yes.
So she's going to be a human who is actually going to have a Krang brain in her stomach, and she's going to be a robot.
Sure, I guess. Io Idabiri, who was on The Bear this year.
Okay.
And I think she's the voice of Missy now on on Big Mouth. She's April O'Neil.
Oh, okay.
So I imagine it'll be a black April O'Neil, like the new TV series, I believe is black. Ice Cube as Superfly.
That is a character I don't know.
Okay. Post Malone as Ray Fillet.
Another character that was only made to sell toys.
Hannibal Buress as Genghis Frog. I mean, I just like Hannibal Buress.
Yeah,
so,
and he hasn't done a lot lately.
Yeah, so I was happy to see him on the list, even though I don't have any investment in Genghis Frog.
Hannibal Buress in Champions, huh? Instead of Woody Harrelson, Hannibal Buress.
Yeah, that would have been fun.
That would have been fun.
Yeah, put Hannibal Buress in more things.
Yeah.
All the Ninja Turtles are played by actual teenagers who I don't think I've seen anything, and I'm not going to scroll through their IMDb's. No. And lastly, we have I thought the weirdest choice on this list is Rose Byrne as Leatherhead.
What?
Yeah.
Really?
I guess Leatherhead is going to be female in this.
Okay. But as a big southern gator?
I imagine the gator's going to be Australian because she's Australian.
Okay, but I mean that was his whole thing. He's like, I guarantee it. Yeah, he's a Gambit type character, but it doesn't matter. Yeah, you could because
I like Rose Byrne. I just thought it was like a real weird choice.
Yeah,
and like I like Leatherhead. I think I've always liked his design. He's like how I want the lizard in Spider-Man to look. But yeah, I mean, I guess there's. Just because it's a mutant gator doesn't necessarily have to have like boobs now. It can still work.
Yeah.
And it can still look exactly the same, just have a female's voice.
Yeah, it'll be this big hulking character walking in the frame and everyone's all shaking and chattering.
Oh, I'm Leatherhead?
Yeah. Yep.
That's not a good accent, but you know what I mean? Crikey, it's me, Leatherhead. But that seems like it'd be a role for one of Flight of the Conchords guys or also Flight of the Conchords guy their manager.
Rise Darby.
Darby, yeah. If you were going to go that route of just big hulking guy with a small silly voice.
Yeah. No Shredder, right? We're not getting Shredder in this?
Shredder, I guess not, because his name isn't on IMDb currently.
Okay, good. Because we've had enough Shredder.
Yeah, he's the Joker of the Ninja Turtles universe, which, I get it. Lead with your strongest villain, but
yeah. But if we are, I wonder if they're just teasing Krang stuff with that Maya Rudolph character. It's just like, oh, here's a little Easter egg. If this does well, we'll do Krang in the next one. But if he is in this, that's kind of weird to have Krang without Shredder. But I'm fine with neither of them. We don't get enough Bebop and Rocksteady.
Yeah.
So I'm happy they're there.
But, I just really enjoy Ninja Turtles. I hope this movie does well. I hope we haven't seen a single still, so I don't know what this movie looks like, or at least
Don't they show a little bit of footage? It kind of almost looks stop motion.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Maybe I missed
And
it.
the thing I saw that was like it was showing all the characters and the actors. You can see in the background like the backs of the turtles and putting their weapons away, and it seemed a little stop motiony. I wasn't super impressed with how it looked, but I'll wait until a trailer comes, which I think is tomorrow. I think we're getting a full trailer tomorrow.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I'm glad I brought it up now. Yeah, I mean, I guess I was kind of hoping for like a Spider-Man, Spider-Verse kind of look.
Sure.
Because they also come from comics, and I think it's a great looking medium, and it worked for Puss in Boots. But I'm also into something new. I'm just looking at images to see if I can see something. Oh, what the fuck is that? All right, cut all this out. Okay, I don't trust any of this. Oh wait. Oh, what? Is that real? Is that what you saw? Something like that?
No, I didn't see any faces, but that does kind of, yeah.
Huh. I mean, that looks.
It looks like a hodgepodge of all the Ninja Turtle types we've ever had in some AI generated thing, and try to get as close as possible.
Yeah, yeah. Like, what is that? I can't tell if I like it or not.
Yeah,
because they almost look like thin.
Yeah, they look really skinny, but they are teenagers.
That's true.
Whereas like Michael Bay, like, no, you guys are 30.
You're 30 and you're hulking monsters.
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough.
Well, we'll see.
I'll give it a shot. I'll give anything to the Turtles a shot.
For sure. And we'll talk about it next week, probably.
Yep. All right, sorry. That was longer than I thought.
No problem. So let's go to another sports movie. Whoever would have thought that we'd have two sports movies for our main topic.
We're big sports guys over here.
Huge sport heads, as they are known.
Mm-hmm.
We're talking about Creed 3. If you can't tell, that's the third Creed movie. Ninth
in a way,
movie?
the ninth Creed movie. Because Creed has essentially been a presence in all the Rocky films.
Yeah, except for 5 and 6.
5 and 6,
yeah.
Okay,
because he did.
Of the 8. Yeah.
7.
Yeah. Jesus Christ. Who cares?
Whatever. Third Creed movie where, let's see, quick synopsis. So Creed's been, killing it. He's now retired. He retired as champion. Was the person he retired on, was that his first opponent?
Correct.
In the first one? Okay. That makes sense. Oh, because we went to a split decision or something like that. Go out on the guy that he didn't beat. Yeah, it's fine. But a friend from his past who has been in jail for like 18 years comes a-knocking, and it's Jonathan Majors. And he is a little butthurt because he was going to be the next big thing, and kind of feels that Adonis kind of took everything from him. He was there to help him in a bad situation. Adonis bailed on him, and he didn't get to live out his dream. So he gives him a shot. Yada, yada, yada. And then some more movie happens.
That is a synopsis.
Which we'll get into some of the finer details of it. Did you like this compared to the other Creed movies?
I did. It's not as good as 1.
Oh, for sure. That's
real
hard to do.
1's fantastic. And I think I've only seen 2 once.
Yeah. I've seen them all only once.
But I would say that I would put this either on par with 2 or just barely above 2. Because 2, I think, from a villain standpoint, like, that guy was fucking scary.
Yeah.
Like his journey of just like losing essentially and then like building himself back up to take on this monster. Like he was a threatening villain just from his like height and stance alone. Where of course Jonathan Majors is like horrifyingly big in this movie. Like just looking at both these two dudes, I was like, I need to hit the gym fast because this is crazy that humans like muscles can look this like chiseled.
Yeah.
That'd be like Jonathan Majors looked bigger than Michael B. Jordan, but he was the best actor villain we've gotten because they've just essentially hired other boxers as opposed to actors. But I just felt like, I just didn't think Jonathan Majors was as good as an opposing villain physically, but the best villain we've gotten so far, for sure.
Okay. I liked him in this, but I thought the movie was going to be a little darker, a little more messed up. Because they were in a group home together, and the inciting incident that got what's his name, Damian Anderson, Dame, arrested was Adonis beat up this dude who watched over them in the group home, and this guy was a piece of shit and like would beat on them. I thought it was going in the like molestation way.
Yeah. It definitely like made you think that's where it was gonna go.
Yeah.
But then it didn't. Which I was like, kind of like I get why. But it was just like that doesn't really seem I mean, I guess you get beat up on every day by like a huge dude and you finally can like take him down. I get it. But I'm so yeah, it's just like, oh, this is Michael B. Jordan directing a movie about himself where he's the champion. It's like, I'm not gonna get raped.
Yeah, and I don't want that for my character. Yeah, I get that. But that's the way I felt it was going. And I felt the ending would be a little darker where something more major would happen and
Jonathan Major. Sorry.
Someone would be like gravely injured, put in a coma, back broken, something. Or even when I was watching, I know I'm jumping to the end here, but I thought at the very end, you know, Adonis goes in, talks to him, they have their little like makeup session. I thought he was gonna put a fucking gun in his mouth and kill himself. I thought Damien was just like, you know what? I can't win. He took it away from me again. I can't do this anymore. And I thought he was just I really thought he was gonna kill himself. But it was just a little too dark.
Yeah. I guess I mean the Rocky franchise, not that it's the Rocky franchise anymore really, but this universe, it's always been an underdog story and like it's always these movies are always hopeful.
Sure.
So I think that ending would have been a little bit too dark. But I mean, in a sense, like Jonathan Majors was the underdog this entire movie. Like Creed wasn't the underdog at any point in this. Like, yeah, he was old and injured, but he was facing a guy who was older than him and who hasn't boxed professionally in 18 years. It's like, yeah, I'm sure he could have like boxed dudes in the joint or whatever. But like, it was like Michael Jordan playing basketball now against a dude who like plays college basketball. It's like, yeah, Michael Jordan might be out of shape, but he might not. But he might be able to play some college kids.
Yeah,
I don't know. But anyway, what worked for you? What didn't work?
I really like the actual fights. I thought all the fights were really interesting. And it's been said before how Michael B. Jordan wanted to like add some anime flair, and we were discussing off air.
I called one of them.
Like how are they going to incorporate that? I was saying like speed lines, you know, in slow-mo and all the light bulb flashes from people's cameras would zip around and look like those, you know, someone's throwing a huge major punch and everything's zipping by them. I thought we were going to get some of that, but it was more of the I'm in my head and I'm evaluating a situation.
Yeah. At least there wasn't. I see his body's opening up there when he swings on this side, so I'll do attack. I mean, he wasn't doing voiceover like they do in anime.
Thank God. Yeah. If he was just like, oh, and this is how I'm going to exploit this. And
it's the Robert Downey Jr. sequence from Sherlock Holmes. Yes. Where he's like playing out the whole fight in his brain before it happens.
What was the one you called?
So off air, this was the day we had your birthday movie. We were like, if we saw Creed, I was like, I'm saying there's going to be two anime things that happen. One, it's going to be like a Goku Vegeta, like two people standing in one spot and they're both like punching each other really fast.
Yeah.
And I thought that was going to happen, which I guess like in a sense like kind of does happen
but
throughout, but it's not like clearly an homage.
Yeah.
And the other one was going to be a thing where it's always the two anime rivals, they punch each other in the face at the same time. And it's like a wide shot of both of them like kind of holding that like thing of like both their fists in each other's face, and it happened. I was like, got one. Yes. Can't wait to talk about that. And the other one I didn't call, but was a clear anime nod, was it's a classic in anime to like punch somebody in the gut and you see like the hand kind of like goes into their back into their back, but you see it kind of happen to Michael B. Jordan in this where he like goes down and all this like spit and stuff kind of flies out of their mouth. I was like, okay, I see. Like, you can, if you've seen any anime, you can clearly point out all the shots in this that are from animes.
And in that final bite, in the final bout, they go into like their mind palace.
Honestly,
of a fight.
I loved it.
I did too. I saw a lot of people shitting on it and going, "Oh, the artistic choices for this." I think it worked. We didn't need to see all 12 rounds.
Nope.
But by the end of round 2, we know what they're capable of, and then they go into this place where it's just you and me. Everybody else is gone. It is a little weird where it's like he's backed up against the cage. And and
the prison bars.
Yeah, the prison bars, and it reminded me slightly of Malignant. I know you didn't see it, but when
I saw the parts.
Yeah, but when she like pushes away the backwards man from herself, she locks her in her mind palace cage. It reminded me of that, so I got a little snicker. But by the time we get out of it, we're already in the 12th round. So we know like this is such a heated thing between these two people, and they're not paying attention to anybody else in the arena. It's just them, and it totally worked, but it was very anime.
Yeah. I mean, we're jumping straight to the final fight. Let's go back a little bit.
Okay.
All right. Some things that I liked. One, I thought all the stuff with his daughter was great. I thought
a lot of signing.
A lot of signing. I thought she was adorable and a really good actress.
Does not look like their child, though. She did not come from those two. Whereas, like, the casting of young Adonis and young Damien are spot on.
Yeah.
Amazing. Their daughter, nah.
Yeah. The movie, so the movie opens up with the flashback of a young Dame and Donnie, as he called him back in the day. Adonis.
I like that it's like they call him Donnie and they call him D, but his name starts with an A.
Yeah. And they go to like this underground sort of boxing match thing. And because Dame's clearly like into some slightly shady stuff, but he basically bets on a fight of whatever the fight that's going on at this underground, back alley betting place. Right before they get arrested. Well, Dame gets arrested. And those two actors are really good casting. Enjoyed that. And then we jump ahead, like I said, Creed's retired. And we get another reunion. I didn't even realize it when Creed 1 came out, but Creed's like coach, or like guy who became his coach, now that Stallone isn't in it.
I think his name is.
Yeah, Duke. Avon Barksdale, and he was Wallace in The Wire. They were two Wire guys.
Oh, shit. Yeah, I didn't.
I
totally saw him as like, he looks familiar, and I did not make that connection.
The legendary Avon Barksdale.
Yeah.
So it's always nice when I see Wire actors together again. And he's been in all three, so I thought he was also really good in this movie. Like, he got time to shine as kind of just like, Creed, like, don't let this dude in. You don't owe him shit. Like, this is a bad idea. Like, he was smart all across the board. All of his speeches he was given to, like, all of his, like, I really, not that he was, like, an important character, but every time he was on screen, I think he really, like, got to do stuff.
You need that Mickey character.
Yeah. Because Stallone was always like his conscious and stuff. So we had that from him and from his wife. Because I mean, that was the piece of it I was like slightly missing. It's like, I'm glad that this franchise can exist without Stallone. But at the same time, like Stallone as his like mentor character, I always really enjoyed. So him not being there anymore was kind of like a little bit of a bummer for me.
I did not even notice it until he mentions like, Apollo gave Rocky a chance and people went nuts for that.
Yeah, that's the only mention.
And I was like,
Rocky.
Oh yeah, Rocky. Completely, Sylvester Stallone is not needed for this franchise. And I feel bad for him because he doesn't own Rocky anymore. Like, all those rights were taken away from him from the get-go. He has had no say in what they have done with the franchise, and for them to move on without him, that sucks for him.
Sure.
I get it, but this is not a Rocky franchise anymore, and we don't need him.
No, I don't think we do. I'm just saying, like, I did like all the stuff from Creed. Like, you couldn't have made a successful Creed movie without Rocky.
At least in that first one.
At least in that first one,
yeah. I figured they would have killed him off in the second one. Because he had cancer, right? But I guess that was the whole point. Like, you fight and I'll fight against cancer.
And it worked.
Yeah, it works. Yeah.
And so, anyway, now they're back together again, Dame and Donnie, and he's like, why don't you come by the gym and you can spar with this boxer who's like the next big thing, Felix Chavez. And it's like, when we're having trouble getting him people because he keeps knocking out all of his sparring partners, so no one wants to fight him, so you'll be his punching bag essentially. And so he does that for a little bit, but then he's like, I want a shot at the title. And he's like,
the arrogance that you have, like, you are a nobody. You have to work a few years to even get a chance, and you're demanding a championship.
And then you have to like fight a bunch of other guys, beat them, and then years down the line, then you get your title shot. So then we see Dame Sabbath. Oh, well, first off, Felix is going to fight Drago from the second movie, which is absurd.
Yeah.
Like
Felix versus Dame is absurd, but Drago, no way these two are fighting.
Because the Creed Drago makes sense. My dad killed your dad. We're both boxers.
Yeah.
This makes sense.
Yeah.
And then we saw Creed like put on a bunch of weight to fight the big bad guy in Creed 2. But Felix is like 100. He's got to be like 50 pounds smaller than this guy. They wouldn't be anywhere close to the same weight class. It was absurd. It's like, Drago will murder you. There's no way you're winning that fight. That's absurd. And don't get me wrong, like, obviously, I'm not a boxing expert. I've seen smaller guys beat bigger guys and dudes who look out of shape beat dudes who look in shape.
Sure.
But at the same time, I was like, I don't believe you have a chance.
I don't think you have the reach to get his face, you know? He's huge.
It was like looking at a mouse trying like, oh, I'm going to box a cat.
Yeah.
It was a little hard to believe.
But I was happy to see Drago back. I didn't expect him. And it's nice that, like, your dad killed my dad, but we can move past that. We're not our dads, and we can be friends.
Yeah. And I think that's one of the things I kind of like about this movie. It's like, if this is the final one, it pays homage to the whole Creed franchise. Even though, like, I don't really care about Conlon, who was the first major villain. I totally forgot about him until he showed up on screen. I was like, because I was trying to think, like, who was the bad guy in the first one?
Just a guy.
And it's not like he was even like a bad guy. He was just like,
he was just the opponent.
Yeah, he was the champion of that time. But Drago, it's a shame because Drago is a way more interesting villain, even though like you're doing another legacy character. Yeah. But at least he was like big and scary, but he just wasn't an actor. And I think he maybe has like 2 lines in this movie, but I like that he became his sparring partner when he like had to get back in shape, because it's like, oh, I need to beat someone who's better than me. I'll get like the best guy I've ever fought who's like twice my size, and I'll fight him. So that worked for me.
But then Dame pays off his like old cellmate to break Drago's hand just to, it's his only way in. No one wants to fight Felix because he is gonna probably just take you down. So he puts Adonis in a corner where he has no other option.
Nice.
Nice
reference.
To put Damien in this match.
And obviously Adonis feels, guilty about the past, and he wants to help his buddy out. It's like, look, this is the only way I look good. You get the fight you want. We all get paid. Because that was Felix's thing. It was like, hey man, I need to get paid. So there's like, we can do this fight because there's no one else for you to fight. So you can just fight a nobody, and I guess you'll make some money.
Yeah.
And then we see Dame just like pretty much annihilate this dude.
Yeah, but he is a big fat cheater. He throws some elbows. He steps on his foot. He's like punching his
arm, and like just basically like trying to like numb that arm so it's useless. Which like in a sense is like just smart fighting,
sure,
but also against
the rules. Yes, and he was deducted points. He was deducted 2 points. But not like this fight was ever going to go the rounds, and it'd have to go to a decision. But one thing about this fight I thought that they were gassing us up for was you don't see Jonathan Majors' body at all until this fight.
Yeah.
And I thought, they would see that he's a big guy, but whatever. He would get to the ring, he would pull off that shirt, and Felix would have been like, oh shit, look how huge this guy is.
Yeah.
But they kind of unceremoniously, he's just like, yep, he's just ready. And I know we as the audience have already seen it from the trailers,
right.
But I feel like they would have, highlighted it a bit more.
Yeah, like every time you saw him, he was always wearing like a hoodie and big baggy clothes. So when they finally reveal it, it's just like you think it would have been like a music cue and like a real like they did a pan as he like takes off his shirt, but it just didn't seem like as grand as like other movies would have done.
Because if it was anime, it would have cut back to Felix and it would have like flashed on his eyes and went, oh.
It was just like maybe he doesn't even like take his shirt off. He just like flexes
and like blows off of him.
He becomes like Frieza level 2 or something. That's a reference I'm sure you don't get.
I know what a Frieza is.
Okay.
You put popsicles in them.
Yeah, exactly. Or it would have been that thing where he like takes off his shirt and then it like lands on the ground and like goes through the fucking ring because it's actually like a 400-pound shirt he's been training on.
Yeah.
Like, wow, this guy's huge. That would have been funny.
Yeah.
So I enjoyed the Felix fight for the most part. I think like you said, the actual boxing elements,
because he was even getting that sort of like viewing his injuries. Like him and Creed were very similar on that.
And yeah, because I think these movies like live and die by the fight sequences. Like you can have a good movie all you want, but if the boxing sucks, then it's kind of a drag because that's what you're looking for. Is like these big action sequences. And obviously, probably nothing can top the first movie's like single take fight. And maybe Michael B. Jordan just didn't want to copy Coogler, or maybe it was just like, well, my thing will be the anime fight. It won't be the long takes, even though like the long takes are great. Plus, they're just, I imagine, just a nightmare to rehearse. So I get it. And so yeah, Dame wins. Then now he's got money and fame. He's 1-0, the lowest possible winning record you can have, and he's now this like huge big shot. And this is where the movie like kind of falls for me a little bit. One, because your villain disappears for a good 30 minutes or so, and then two, it's like the pacing of from like that fight to just the next fight is like lightning fast in terms of just like, we have all this backstory with his mom who's like has a stroke and dies and all that stuff. But then it's just like, hey, we're going to fight each other now. And then there's a 2 to 3 minute training montage. And then it's just the fight.
Yeah.
Like I thought like if you're going to have a villain character and someone as good as Jonathan Majors, like have Jonathan Majors like talk to the media and you get like just a 5-second clip of him going like, "Whoa, Creed's a nobody. He's a fraud." Just like I thought that's where you like really build up this rivalry and like have him like talk all this stuff and maybe they see each other. Like there was just none of that. It's just like, and not that it's like part of me is like, oh, it's nice that we didn't have to waste all this time like spending an hour, but like
because it's under 2 hours. Yeah, it's the shortest of the 3.
But it just feels like there's more moments for Majors to like really chew up the scenery, and I mean. I think he's really good in this. I just wanted to see more of him. So when he was gone for that amount of time, I was like, you're really lacking the villainous of it all.
And you can tell he's up to no good from the get go. Obviously he's got a plan.
Sure.
And I kind of wish they downplayed it and made him a little more nice. Was a monster in the ring, and so Adonis is a little wary of him. And then as soon as he wins, he completely flips and turns into the complete asshole. Me and Nick were talking about this, how it's really illogical that he would get a chance to do this. And if there was a scene where you saw him just like knocking out people left and right, like viral videos of him being so good and brutal and just getting kind of like power mad, it could have helped his like villain arc a bit better.
Because it kind of reminded me of Tom Hardy in Warrior.
That's what Nick was talking about.
Because it's just like he's just a big dude who's like really taking it to people, but even in that movie, he had to fight a bunch of people before he got like the championship or the whatever the UFC thing is. But he was a big hulking monster who was just like he was a street fighter. When everyone else was like very technical. He's like, I don't need to be technical. I'm just going to knock you out so fast. I don't have to like strategize kind of thing. And I thought like that's where you make him menacing.
Yeah, instead of breaking really, Drago's hand, he should have he should have orchestrated a disrespect of some kind where it causes Drago to throw a punch at him and he lays out Drago in one punch and then brags about, look, this was your opponent. I defeated him in one punch. I'll lay anybody out and start hyping himself up that way instead of this kind of diabolical Nancy Kerrigan, Tanya Harding sort of situation.
Yeah, because that was the other thing. It just seemed his rise to power was so instantaneous. Like, yeah, he won that fight and became a champion. It's like, okay, I'm fine with that. But then it was just like out of the woodwork, he's got like all these like cronies who are like with him, and everyone at this like beach party is like, oh, I'm the champ now, and everyone's like, woo! It's
all
like
these hanger-ons.
Yeah, it's just like, what the? Are these people your friends? Did you invite them to this thing? Are they just like strangers who are walking by? And like then it cuts to him, and he's in like this big beautiful house with this random woman, which whatever. But it just seemed like, how much money did he get from this fight? Like, would he have gotten anything really? Like, I'm sure he would have gotten like a nice payday, but like $1 million home payday, or was it just like a really nice apartment that we saw one room of?
Yeah, it was a condo.
It just seemed like, or if it was one of those things where Jonathan Majors won that fight, it's been a year or two now. Creed's life has kind of crumbled a little bit. He's lost a lot of credit. His gym is like on the point of like bankruptcy or something like that. And Jonathan Majors has just now he's fought everybody and he's beaten them all. And it's like, who can possibly take down Jonathan Majors? I was like, Creed's like, I gotta teach this kid a lesson. And this is how I save my gym and save my, my family. And then that's when you have the training montage and he's getting back in shape and they have their back and forth. But you get none of that. It's just like, nope, the only way Dame's going to listen to me is if I beat him in the ring. Which, fine.
That's fine. But if this is going to be the last Creed movie, which we're not sure, there could be a 4, but to end this with him being the champion again when he retired at the beginning of the movie seems kind of odd. Like, I would get it. He wins the championship from that first fight. And then maybe because of an injury, he stops boxing. He doesn't officially retire. He doesn't announce any sort of final match. He just says, I think I'm done. I need to heal. I want to take care of my family and bring up the next generation. And then you have Jonathan Majors calling him out like, oh, you retired as the champion. Like, it's a coward's way. And coaxes him out and like, well, I never really retired. I've still been in the game. I just haven't fought. And so this match will be my last match. Whether I win or I lose, this will be the last one. I think that would have played better.
Right.
Because now, whether he wins or loses, that wouldn't matter. But he's just like champion at the end now. And then, so what do you do for the next one?
Well, I have a pitch for that. But yeah, like the whole time I thought Creed was going to not necessarily lose, but like beat Jonathan Majors to a point where it's like, I know that I'm better than you. You know that you're better than me, but you need this and I don't. I have people to go home to. I have a family. It would be one of those, I thought it was going to go like the anime route. It's like, we're friends, like we can be friends again because I have respect for myself and you can live your life and you can be part of my life or not or whatever it is. But it's like, and so Creed like looks to his corner or something and the corner throws in the towel. It's like, yeah, Creed like should have won that fight, but he gave up at the last second. And, Jonathan Majors can be mad. It's like, no, come on, man, like fight me, like
I don't need this.
But I don't. He's like, I don't need to. I've already won.
Yeah.
And then he just walks out of the ring. And obviously that'd be kind of lame and cliche and like boxing fans would have been like, Creed fucking sucks ass. Like who gives up the fight? So I'm not sure if like logically it would have worked, but that's kind of like the thing I was waiting for because like Creed had nothing else to prove because the first movie was like prove that. That's the other thing. It's like, what does this movie prove? It's like the first movie proved that Creed is more than just living in the shadow of his father. And then the second one was this thing that has haunted my family. Like this guy who's killed my dad, I can fight him. But now we can be cool and cool. Like it's learning to, when do I throw in the towel? And that was the sort of crux of that movie. And this was just like,
I'm still good.
Be a nice person when you, or like, unload your emotional baggage, which I also have another thing to say about that. Yeah, so it's just like the message of this movie I didn't quite get. The other two things that I was like a little bit disappointed with was at the beginning of the film, you see his daughter get in a fight with like a school bully. And so that becomes a point of contention with his Tessa Thompson's character was like, you want her to fight. We need to teach her why to fight, not just how to fight. And then nothing ever comes of that.
And he secretly trains her behind
trains her, yeah, and it's just like, so you don't teach your daughter any real lesson because that never comes back up again. So I was like, that's kind of a shame. Yeah. And
if he was teaching her like, I understand you want to fight, but sometimes it's better not to, and taught her how to diffuse the situation, block other throws, and then uses that in his own match, that then you have some learning parallels there.
Sure, and like, because I thought like maybe that could be part of the lesson of this movie is just like knowing when to fight. It's like, do I need to fight Dame? Why am I fighting Dame? It's like, I learned that from my wife. I learned that from my kid. Because a big thing of Rocky was like, he was kind of like not a shitty dad, but, by Rocky Balboa, like he hasn't talked to his son in a while or whatever. And like then they can reconnect by the end of the movie. Just like, and, Adonis didn't know his dad because his dad died. It's like he can be the dad like his mentors weren't, essentially. Yeah. It's like, that's what separates Adonis. Like, I'm a good father. And nothing ever came of that, which I thought that was kind of a shame. The other thing that was kind of disappointing was this whole Leon thing in the background, and Tessa Thompson's character is like, you got to open up, you got to share your feelings. This could have been a beautiful movie about like toxic masculinity and like two men who like have this horrible past who they share together, who should just go like, who can like cry together and not be like effeminate or anything like that. It's just like, no, dude, we went through this thing together. We're bonded brothers for life. But it's just about two men who have pent up aggression who need to like hit
each other,
to express themselves.
Yeah.
It's like that's the other emotional arc that I wish was explored, because it was just like, hey, Donnie, like, I'm your wife. You can talk to me, or you need to talk to somebody. And it isn't until his mom dies where he's just like, I guess I can like cry a little bit. It's like,
I guess I'll trust my wife with my emotions.
Yeah, I'll tell my wife I was beat as a kid, and it's just like,
and that's why I thought it was a molestation thing, because he did not want to talk about it, and it would be that sort of, I'm not a man if I admit to being sexually abused as a child. You know, that happens to girls, and I've been holding that for so long, and then you show his maturity, but it was like, oh, I got beat up a lot. Like, yeah, but you also fight for fun.
Yeah, it's weird that like you've been beat up every day your entire life, but you're embarrassed about being beat up when you're a child.
Yeah,
which just seemed a little silly to me. So the molestation thing would have worked, I think, a little bit more, maybe, or just, I don't know, he burnt cigarettes on, like there was some sort of like torture element to it, not necessarily torture, but you know what I'm saying. Where it wasn't just getting beat on every day. So that was the, like, I would have enjoyed like at the end, after the fight's over and they're in the locker room together, it's just like they really like had a moment together that didn't seem just like, hey man, like we got out of the system, we're cool, and they just like walk away. Like, I wanted to see two really good actors cry together and be big, hulking, beautiful men who are just like sharing their feelings. Yeah. And I know that might sound like lame in a boxing movie, but like these Rocky films have, like, the first Rocky film was like a very heartfelt underdog story about, and like there's heart throughout these movies. You can have those feelings. It's okay. That should have been, I think that should have been the emotional arc. Is like, can these two men who are afraid to open up, and they kind of do, but only after hitting each other for 2 hours or whatever. And I that might be all I have to say. Okay, well, we'll do our pitch. My pitch for the fourth
Before
one.
You get into that, just real quick, did you ever see The Gift with Jason Bateman?
No.
Okay. Jonathan Majors was giving off some real creepy Joel Edgerton vibes from that. You know, this guy shows up in your life and that's from your past and is a weirdo.
I was waiting for him to like hit on Adonis's wife, but that never came. And I'm glad it didn't. I didn't want that at all. But I just wasn't sure if he was going to be a little bit like too chummy to try and like goad him into a fight or something like that.
Yeah.
Or if he was just going to like break into his home and be like, hey, is Donnie here? And he's like with his goons, and his goons maybe have been a little creepy. And he's just like, nah, man, we don't do that here. Whatever, whatever. And I thought he was going to be like scary, but I'm glad that didn't happen.
Pitch.
So my pitch is, Jonathan, like, so a classic anime thing is after you beat your rival in a fight, that rival is now your like teammate, friend,
Fast and Furious
thing. Yeah, Fast and Furious rules. For audiences that don't watch anime. So I think the thing to be would be, okay, well, now, you have two options. Either Donnie is still chasing, like, Adonis is retired again, and Donnie is still chasing the championship. And then you do the Apollo Creed thing where Adonis is now training. Donnie's like, I'm going to help you get your title back. Dame, I'm sorry. Adonis is training.
Adonis is training himself.
Yeah, Adonis is training Dame. They're working together. They're sparring together. They're hanging out again. They're good friends, much like Rocky and Apollo. And then Dame gets in a fight with whatever guy. And then you kind of do a Rocky IV scenario where Dame dies, and that's what pulls Creed out. It's like, you killed my best friend. Now I'm going back in the ring to sort of like take revenge. You could do that. Now they've done that before.
Yeah, we don't need to pull.
So that's not my act, but I'm just saying that's what you could do.
That's a studio saying.
Or not even that Dame dies. It's just Dame's going for the title fight. you $1 million baby him. Now he's in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And now maybe Dame does kill himself because he's
Okay.
like, if I can't fight,
then
maybe I have nothing. And so like now that's what upsets Adonis and sends him back into the ring because it's like, yeah, you didn't kill my friend, but what you did made my friend kill himself, and then he's back in it. But what I would really like to see, and it's absurd because as far as I know, it's never happened in boxing history. But it's just you have Jonathan Majors. I want to use him. I want to bring him in full force. But how do you use him and Adonis together without them fighting? You do a boxing duo match. You have 4 fighters in the ring at the same time.
I've seen these in like for UFC type Ultimate Fighting. I haven't seen it for boxing.
You do some sort of Hollywood movie magic bullshit where you come up with an excuse where it's just like, oh, well, Adonis and Dame are washed up. He's a former inmate. He's a loser. He cheated and got a title, and then his buddy had to beat him up. It's like, and maybe you have the like Mendoza brothers. They were like, the Mendoza brothers, I think, were real killers.
That was Menendez.
Menendez, I'm sorry. Okay. Forget I said that. But you have like 2 guys come in, maybe they're brothers, maybe they're friends, who cares? But they're like, we're going out. And maybe they like jump Dame and beat him because Dame thinks he could take him or whatever it is. And so you just have Dame and Adonis team up versus these 2 guys. And you just have, I think, some really cool scenes where like you have Dame hitting this guy over here and then he ducks and then Adonis comes back in and then he fight. It's like, I think you could do some really cool fight choreography.
Sure.
That's basically the pitch of my movie. It's just have 4 guys in a ring versus 2 and just do cool choreography where they're like trading fighters and like one guy's getting beat up. So they have to like run over here and help him. But while he's getting jumped, it's like, I think you could do some really fun stuff. Would it be absurd? 1,000%. But so is Rocky solving, communism in Russia in 4.
And fighting a robot.
And a robot in 5, yes. I think that's how you sort of invigorate the fight sequences and also put these 2 back together again, is team them up and do like a duo fight. And I think I'd really like to see that because you have the technical fighter of Creed while also the street fighting of Dame teaming up, and like maybe they kind of teach each other lessons, and plus I think their dynamic would be a lot of fun, and maybe there'd be still some tension because like who's actually better. Maybe Dame has gotten far better in the like year or 2 that's passed, and it's just a matter of just like what would be the inciting incident that would cause both of these men to team up to take down these next 2 guys, because we've already established Creed has nothing to prove, and Dame has already he dreamed of having a title, he got it, and now it's like he's friends with his best childhood friend again. It's like I don't know, you'd have to do something interesting to bring them together, but that's what I'd like to see. I would like to see more of Jonathan Majors because I just think he's great in everything, and I think he needs more screen time. He would have been great like the way that Rocky 1 ended and you had a rematch in 2. I would have liked to see a rematch with Jonathan Majors, but you kind of, I feel like, already finished that storyline. So that's my pitch. In Creed 4, tag team fight.
Yeah, and it's like 4. There's 4 guys in the ring. You know, it makes sense.
Oh, I didn't even think of that.
Yeah.
Creed 4 corners.
4 corners. Yeah. I mean, that's more of a, like wrestling. I mean, it's still the same ring, but I hear it with wrestling.
Fair enough.
But yeah, or maybe Jonathan Majors, people don't respect him anymore, so he's had to go that route of gimmick boxing, celebrity boxing. Maybe he's becoming an enforcer for some bad guy just because nobody really wants to fight him, but he is still a powerhouse. Yeah, I would like to see him back as well. I can't see the integrity of the Creed movies holding up if we have a gimmicky fight like a 4-man boxing match.
Look, I understand it's weird.
It'd be like them doing the chess boxing where like they have a round of boxing and then they have like 5 minutes where they have to play chess. And then they go back to boxing. It'd be like having that in a Creed movie. Like this feels out of place.
I don't, or maybe it could be more of a Rocky 5 scenario where it's not really about some big major event. Maybe it just becomes like, oh, Dame has connections to like a Crenshaw gang. Not that necessarily he's in it. Like he got out of that life. Like
but he made some enemies in prison.
But he's made some enemies in prison. Like, oh yeah, like I survived because 1, no one could beat me in a fight, but 2, like I also had buddies in prison who protected me from, like, if I was in the shower by myself, like, I can't stop 6 shivs coming at me.
Yeah. Or I had to be an enforcer for a dude because
I killed this guy's cousin, and so now his cousin's after me. And then you have then it just becomes like a street thing where it's like you don't have the final fight being in like an official ring. You have Dame and Adonis teaming up, and it's like, all right, man, we're gonna fight bare knuckles or with like whatever, and whoever wins, this is over. And you kind of do that kind of thing. And of course, maybe the villains of the movie will like try something shady. Maybe Dame will like step in front of Adonis to like take the knife, or maybe Creed does it. And whatever. Not to stereotype and put people in gangs or whatever. I'm just saying, like, if you want to like get out of the ring and do something gimmicky without it being a gimmick, that's a way you could do it.
Sure.
And it would still hold true to both those characters' backstories and the Creed Rocky franchise, because Rocky V was not really about ring stuff, even though I never saw that movie, but I just remember the final fight like being in the street. So I think that's something you could do.
Yeah, that would work.
And you have a character named so Tommy Gunn was in 5.
Yeah.
You have a character named
Machine Gun Kelly. Oh yeah, you made Creed fight Jake Paul in the next one.
Oof. If your movie doesn't want to make money,
I think people would show up for it. But would he still play? Would he play himself, or is he playing just the villain character? Because Jake Paul looks like a boxing villain character.
Oh, sure.
But yeah, the Paul brothers versus Adonis and Damian. I'd watch that. Murder those motherfuckers. Hell yeah. In the street. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a movie. Just do that.
Well, yeah. I mean, you could do the classic 80 like rich white guys versus the street kids, and then you could do that where it's like. Yeah, I mean, not necessarily that I went with the Paul brothers, but it's like, it's like, yeah, Creed is a legend, Rocky's a legend, but we're boxing royalty because our dad owns a yacht. I don't know, but I just like the idea of, but then
I don't even think that had to be like
thing. I don't want to make it a race thing.
I think you just
it's a class thing. That's what it is.
You make it just like the Paul brothers. They're just people who have so much money and time that they can pursue whatever they want.
Yeah,
they have these egos.
Creed and Dame had to work for everything. They were handed boxing greatness because, I mean, they had good genetics, but also like they had all the best facilities and stuff to train them. Maybe, yeah. I mean, there's ways to continue the franchise.
For sure.
This movie ends in a way that can solidify it as the last one or keep it going.
I think Creed should have gotten hurt though, and Nick was bringing this up about how there isn't a lot of knockdowns in these movies. People are just taking blow after blow after blow. Nobody gets knocked down.
Yeah, after watching UFC, where like people get hit, but like in these movies, people are getting like real like huge hits on them, and like normally they would just go down. But...
And you don't always like see a lot of hits hit.
Yeah.
They throw a fuck ton of punches and not all of them hit. Whereas in this movie, it's
they're all
land. No one's blocking, or they block for a bit, but then they exchange. And I never see like a 1-2-3 combo hit in real life. It's always like, oh, I got the first 2, but I kind of missed on the third one. But in this, every attack is this like 3-hit combo.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, neither one of us are boxing experts, but I would bet money that none of the Rocky / Creed films are accurate to boxing.
No. Yeah. But I do think like if Adonis in one of his final hits to Jonathan Majors like shattered his hand or his arm and he's like, oh crap, what do I do now? I hope he stays down. So he may win and he may be the champion, but now he's in a spot where he may never come back even if he wanted to. And then that could leave you at an interesting place for 4, whereas we kind of in the movie, kind of where we are at the beginning of the movie. He's champion and he's retired, and that's just a little dull. Something needed to happen, or if he hit Dame so hard that he is in a hospital and he's in a coma and he does not know if he's ever going to come out, and he has to live with that sort of situation. Something,
yeah. Because if you wanted to do Creed 4. That's how you do it, is you like hurt Major so bad that the only way to do Creed 4 is for him to come back even bigger and stronger than before and have a rematch. or vice versa, or like he hurts Creed.
Yeah.
Yeah. Either way. But no, it's just like, once again, if I'm Michael B. Jordan and I'm getting my first chance to direct something that I'm the star in, I'm going to make myself look good as possible.
Yeah.
I'm not going to lose a single fight. And that's what he does. So I get it. The last thing I'll say is, and skipped over when we talked about the montage. I thought it was I liked it, but two, it just reminded me of the Dark Knight Returns, because they kept saying like, oh, he's so old, he's like 32.
That's old for the sport.
Yeah, sure, but Rocky Balboa in Rocky Balboa was like 60.
Yeah,
and he's still
George Floyd or Floyd Mayweather, not Floyd Mayweather, George Foreman. He went pretty late in his years.
Yeah, I just thought it was funny. It was just like, well, your two fingers in your hand are busted, but I like that it was like cutting to footage of the previous film, showing like that's why he has that injury, because Drago like busted his spleen, and Conlon like broke his hand or whatever, and I liked. And how many concussions have you got? Because he's been knocked out a bunch. I liked that sequence, but I just found it funny that they kept calling him old. You're like, you're too old for this. You're too old for this. This is a young man's game. But it's like, he's not that old compared to Stallone, who was old in the first movie.
Yeah.
So I just thought that was funny.
So my final things, two things real quick. I like Michael B. Jordan's clothes in this. They all look really comfy. All of his little like sweaters.
Oh, yeah.
He looked just so comfy and stylish.
I assume cashmere, super soft. But if you told me all of his clothes were made out of cashmere, even his suits, I'd be like, yeah, that makes sense.
Of course.
It's like, it must be nice to have like money to be like, yeah, I'm always comfortable, bro.
My socks are cashmere. And the music wasn't great in this for two things. One, his montage music it was no Rocky montage music. Like that's classic, iconic sports montage music. And this, it didn't resonate with me at all. He needed something for himself, and it just really wasn't anything.
Yeah, I was listening to a podcast earlier, and they kind of like talking about that. It's like, how could you not have like the classic Rocky theme? And like, honestly, I'm okay without the Rocky theme.
Yeah.
But the theme song from the first movie, I rewatched it the other day on YouTube, where he's like running and the dudes on the the
ATVs
and stuff are driving past him. Like that sounds great. Like if that was his theme song, or I can't remember if that's like from the original movies, or if it's like it's like got a hip hop element to it. Yeah. Either way, like if you do some sort of like that element to his music, that's cool. That's how you like keep sort of it to the past, but also make it new. Yeah. That's great. But yeah, none of the music stood it. Well, there's some soundtrack choices that I liked.
They're fine, but there's a song that mentions Wakanda in it.
Yeah.
And you have a guy who was in Black Panther. You have the former director of this series who directed Black Panther. So when people in the Creed universe watched Black Panther, did they go, Killmonger kind of looks like Adonis. That's interesting. Oh, did Apollo have a second son? That's weird.
I'm going to go out on a limb and say that they can do that because one, the music isn't playing in the real world, and two, Black Panther doesn't exist in the Creed universe.
Yeah, okay.
That's my my guess. And also, I'm sure it's just like him going like, hey,
look at
this movie. Yeah. I was in that thing too. These rappers are referencing stuff I was in. But yeah, I liked some of the soundtracks to this movie, and they all fit thematically to what was happening. Because sometimes you just have a song where it's like, yeah, it fits the mood, but the lyrics like don't make sense. But a lot of lyrics like were saying stuff that like kind of played into the scene itself. So I thought they were good choices from a directing standpoint. And they seemed like solid songs. Yeah. An artist I like.
Well, that's all I gotta say.
Yeah. So what would you give this movie as a grade?
Oh, I gave this movie an A-. I think this is a very good movie that doesn't have many issues. I mean, we nitpicked the fuck out of it.
Sure.
But it's just minor sort of dumb shit. And I think this is a very entertaining with a good cast of likable and believable characters. And besides just a few things of it's a little by the numbers when it comes to sports movies. But yeah, I have no real problems with this,
and I'd happily see more. I'm going to give this movie a B+, because I had a good time. I liked Jonathan Majors as the best villain in the Creed franchise because he's an actor who learned to box as opposed to boxers who had to learn to act, which definitely helped. I just wish it could have been an A minus had it had like a emotional story element that I could really latch onto, which I felt like it didn't quite grab me in the way that I wanted to, because it does fall just short of Creed 1. So that's why it's a B plus, because the first Creed movie is like a solid A. So B plus.
All right. Well, what's next week? Ooh, big week.
Well,
big week.
It probably would have been Champions had we not already seen it.
No, Champions is out this weekend. Oh, no, it isn't.
No,
it isn't.
It comes out the 10th.
Yeah, that's right. Because I was pissed because we said it's not going to be Scream. It's not going to be 65 because that's 2 weeks away. And then we get Champions, which was 2 weeks away.
Mm-hmm.
The nerve.
Yeah, look it up real quick.
It's 65 in Scream.
Oh.
Yeah.
Well, next week's 65 then.
You gotta see Scream.
And I'll watch Scream just for you, Ben.
Yeah, I need you to.
I'll be the outsider coming in to the 6th in a franchise, and also the finale of Last of Us.
Oh yeah.
So next week's actually a pretty big week because we're looking forward to 65. We're looking forward to the finale Last of Us.
Mm-hmm. I'm really looking forward to Scream,
and you're looking forward to Scream.
Yeah. So yeah, next week, big week. Very excited for that. Got anything else?
Nope. See you in a little bit for Last of Us.
Well, if you want to get in contact with us, we are at WRPL Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Gmail. As always, I'm Ben.
And I'm Steve.
And keep consuming. I'd watch that. Murder those motherfuckers. Hell yeah. In the street? Yeah. It doesn't have to be a movie. Just do that.